the United States has dropped heavier bomb on Iran. We have always maintained in this space, so I do not report on what's happening in the Middle East in the way most legacy media do. The reason for that is, and the main reason in this case right now, is that through the lens that I am looking through, I am 100% convinced that any war that Israel starts in the Middle East is sanctioned by and involves, in the first place, the United States of America, 100% involvement, and in the second place, the United Kingdom. So this is where I come from. This is my epistemology. This is where I come from. This is how I see things. Within a geopolitical context, understanding that Israel is not a standalone country, but is a satellite state of the United States of America. And regardless of how the narrative is phrased, Netanyahu has control over Trump, it really doesn't even matter. Because our experience on reporting on the geopolitics of that region is that it doesn't matter which American president is in power, what the name of the American president is. The seat of the presidency, the seat of the presidency, the office of the presidency, with everything that comes with, and it's not just the president and those who you see, he named his cabinet and these, and Israel are one and the same. Because sometimes we fool ourselves into thinking that that little piece of strip of land, very small, tiny piece of land, and this is why I keep saying go to your maps. To understand the geopolitics, you have to understand the geography. That is the first requirement. There can be no discussion of a geopolitics without understanding the geography. And it's simple to me, very, very simple. So that little piece of land that the British under Winston Churchill in 1948 asked the Palestinians for, so that the people who were fleeing World War II, the people who were part of the what they call the Holocaust, that these people who were persecuted could have a refuge, a place to call home, a place to live. They were from Poland, they were from Russia, they were from Kazakhstan, they were from Ukraine, they were from old Europe. And so they were placed there. They asked for the land. They were given refugee status. And so they were placed in that. These people who now identify, depending on where they are speaking, as Jews or Zionists or Israelis, these people, that little piece of land, look where it is, understand what is happening there geographically. That is a satellite state of the United States of America. They are one and the same. So that when Israel launched an illegal and unprovoked attack on Iran, are two different entities. Because even though people might be on contract and some are contractual arrangements, ultimately, nothing happens without the say-so or the permission of IRFM. It's the very same thing. So Israel is a program, the United States is a radio station. Israel is a program panda station, owned by the station. So it doesn't matter whether it is Netanyahu or Sharon or any of them. The policy remains the same. And if you understand, if you go all the way back even to the Ottoman Empire, the days when we were talking about Byzantine, if we go all the way back there, the plans, historically, you can see when the plans were put in train as to what Israel would be, how it would be the bully of the Middle East on behalf of the United States of America, and secondly, of the UK, and then thirdly, of Europe. You know, Israel, nobody questions how come Israel is in the Eurovision contest. There's a contest in the United States, in the UK, that's called the Eurovision, that European countries enter. Nobody asks, how come Israel always enters that contest? It's like saying the emperor is naked. There are questions all around us to be asked that we're not asking. Anyway, long and short of it, just to wrap this up, is to say that these two are the same. Israel does what it does on behalf of the United States. The narrative that they're spinning ever since Israel launched this illegal attack, unprovoked attack on Iran, is that Israel did it to get the US into the war. That is BS. That's foolishness. They're telling us to look over here. And all of us are running with this narrative. That is stupidness. This was done with the full knowledge, consent, and possibly, and not just permission, but go ahead, do this, of the United States of America. And notice I hardly say Donald Trump in all of this, because the names of the people, they're of no consequence. The system that is in place, the beast, is what it is. So it don't matter who the people are, who are the flying monkeys and the little helpers, Satan's little helpers. It don't matter their names. They're all going to come and they're all going to do the same thing. And it's going to play out in the way that it is playing out, because that is how it is set. This we have to understand. I think Iran understands it to some extent. Iran's foreign minister is out here now talking about the United States betraying diplomacy. The foreign minister has been on the social media also tweeting. And I think he said, last week we were in negotiations with the United States when Israel decided to blow up that diplomacy. This week, we held talks with the E3/EU when the US decided to blow up that diplomacy. What conclusion would you draw? And he goes on to say, to Britain and the EU High Rep, it is Iran which must return to the table. But how can Iran return to something it never left, let alone blew up? So this is what they're saying. They're saying this is a betrayal. I think for us, in terms of the geopolitics of it, that if we get bogged down in looking at this battle, then we are very likely to miss the bigger point. And there is a bigger point to this, a bigger point. I notice, so I've been writing about this on the social media and so on, and I noticed that many people have reported me, and I'm getting lots of emails from different sources. And this morning I woke up to one from Gmail saying that there is a request to have my email blocked. I have that from Facebook, I'm getting that from Twitter, I'm getting that from X, I'm getting that from IG, I'm getting that from TikTok. So if you don't see me on the social media, not because I don't want to be on the social media, it is because I am being heavily restricted. So my thing on my take on all of this is that the U.S. has been involved in this illegal and unprovoked war on Iran. And we spent a lot of time talking about this whole thing last week, so I won't necessarily go over it. But to say that we're moving in the way that geopolitically the system is showing us that it was going to go outside of COVID, which is to say moving into a new economic world order, and also a new world order, generally speaking. So this is where we are. The new world order, from my perspective, is technocracies, transhumanism. It is, obviously, all of that includes what's going to be done with artificial intelligence and so on. So the umbrella term, that it's technocracy. So it includes all of the digital technologies, all of the digital IDs, the smart cities, the whole gamut. And of course, I know we can get bogged down with just what is happening, because we can miss the forest for the trees. If we spend too much time talking about, is Iran going to respond, or the Iran's Revolutionary Guard is warning this morning of regrettable responses. The Guard Corps has warned the United States to prepare for retaliation. The Revolutionary Guard said it would use options beyond the understanding of the United States and Israel that must expect regrettable responses, that retaliation is its legitimate right to self-defense. So the Revolutionary Guard has put out a statement, and it continues: the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is well aware of the terrain of this combined and full-scale imposed war, and will never be intimidated by the clamor of Trump and the criminal gang ruling the White House and Tel Aviv. So the language is strong, it is formidable, it is in your face, it is all out. We are coming for this. This is World War III situation. So this is why people are pretty concerned about where this is going to go. Trump has tweeted, he says, if there is retaliation, then there'll be another strike, and it will be more devastating than the one last night into this morning. What that tells you is that, at least in language, there is serious escalation. Let me say exactly what Trump says. He says, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. Thank you, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. He is drunk on blood and power. This is the situation. And there is an escalation, both in action and in narrative, in language, in talk, in words that are being used, and so on. A lot of countries have already responded. The most hilarious response has come from Pakistan, because Pakistan has said that they will defend Iran, and they condemn the United States attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities, which it said follow a series of attacks by Israel. They say that they're greatly concerned at the possible further escalation of tensions in the region, and they go on to say, we reiterate that these attacks violate all norms of international law, and that Iran has legitimate right to defend itself under the UN Charter. You know, it goes on and on. But what I find interesting about that is that Pakistan, just day before yesterday, or was it day before Friday, voted, let me find the story, recommended and went beyond recommend to put themselves back in play, backing Donald Trump. They have, let me try and find this, because what they've done is that they have now gone out and recommended Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. Pakistan. Same Pakistan here. Yeah, here it is. Pakistan has formally recommended United States President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, citing his decisive diplomatic intervention following a spike in violence between India and Pakistan earlier this year. The Pakistani government praised Trump for leveraging his pivotal leadership in May, when several days of cross-border strikes marked the worst regional fighting between the two nuclear-armed nations since 1971, killing dozens and strong fears of a wider war. So Islamabad and New Delhi agreed to the U.S. brokered truce on May 8. We don't have to go over that, but long and short of it is that Pakistan has formally recommended Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. At the same time, Pakistan over here talking through the other side of its mouth, saying this is egregious, how dare you attack Iran, and we will use our nuclear weapons against you. It's a lot of talk. Let me tell you, I'm going to leave it here for this morning. I will keep informing you if anything comes up. I'm keeping on top of this. I'm monitoring everything around me. But just to say, this is where I leave it for now, which is to say that until, yes, there's an escalation in words. Lots of countries have responded. They're coming out strident. They're condemning. So it's a global South-West Middle East against Europe and the UK. So Europe, the UK, Europe without Russia and, the usual allies around Russia. The United States, a lot of the Caribbean countries, we haven't heard from them yet, but we know they're up on the side of the United States. So the usual suspects that would line up behind the United States have already lined up behind the United States. The usual suspect that would line up behind Iran have already lined up behind Iran in terms of words, in terms of what they're saying, right? So you have even Saudi Arabia, the hypocrite, coming out and lining up behind Iran in terms of what it has said. It's saying it because it has to. Saudi Arabia is aligned with Israel. Syria is now being run by Al-Qaeda. Remember now that you don't hear anything about Al-Qaeda anymore, or Al-Qaeda. When last you hear anything about Al-Qaeda? You hardly hear anything about ISIS. That is because the United States government and Israel are now working with both ISIS. They're working with United States, Israel, and France are working with ISIS in the Sahel. The Sahel. So we have a very serious situation unfolding in the Sahel right now, where Burkina Faso is constantly under attack, Mali is constantly under attack, Niger, Guinea, Cameroon. I mean, all of those countries continuously under attack from Al-Qaeda in the Sahel. These are people who are mercenaries working with France, the US, the UK, and so on. Then we have the president of Syria was driven out of Syria, now in exile in Russia, and the person they have put in is one of the top members of Al-Qaeda. This is no joke. This is no speculation. Even they themselves have already said, yes, them know, say, he's one of the top generals of Al-Qaeda. We don't talk a lot about this because the legacy media isn't talking about it, so we don't talk about it either. So the US and Israel are working through Syria in partnership with the man them put in there, a puppet government who is a former. So we have masquerading as democracy in the Middle East. Not just in the Middle East, because that bomb last night. And NATO has been telling us since the beginning of this year to prepare for war. I'm just saying that the language is escalating. So whatever is, it's the isness of things, isn't it? It is what it is. My friend Kwame Pianka said, yes, tell you what, you better fill up your tank today because the gas prices are just going to shoot up because of what prices are going to shoot up because of what's happening right now in the Middle East. And you know that we have some unscrupulous people around us who will just raise the gas price upon us regardless of what happens. That's our own personal thing in Jamaica. So fill up your tank. But nobody rush the gas station, no rush the petrol station, please. But he look like, but he's right. Fill up your tank. Anyway, so this looks like it's going to drag out for a while. I don't see Iran just sitting on its laurels saying, "Come bomb me again," you know. So the point I was making about where I'm leaving it is to say, until Iran acts, regardless of what Iran is saying, until we see what China does, what Russia does, and what the hypocrite Pakistan does, until we see how things unfold, and we probably need to give ourselves more time. Today is going to be a very important day. Usually it's a day for talk shop. It's Sunday. A lot of people are talking. And as we go into next week, the most telling thing for us in terms of how we begin to see this, we can analyze because we're critical thinking beings and deep thinkers. We can look ahead and say, this is what about it, this is what is likely, this is what is likely. Seymour Hersh, the journalist, told us last week in his Substack reporting that America was going to use these B-12 or B-22 or B whatever number they are, bombs. They're going to drop these bunker busters on Iran this weekend, last weekend, which would have been, he said it would have been between Friday and Sunday. And this is exactly what happened. This is a journalist who's been doing his research, who's been talking to people, and he wrote extensively about that. He broke it down as to why this was going to happen. So if you check him out, Seymour Hersh, his Substack, he literally said this, bombing, this escalation in bombing, in terms of the bunker busters, that would happen exactly when it happened. Interestingly enough, it is just an escalation, because America with Israel, they've been bombing Iran for the last 10 days. So the bunker busters that they dropped last night is just an escalation, and I don't want to diminish it, but to say that it's not a new war. They started this war 10 days ago in terms of the escalation. But if we continue to think it was Israel, we're going to miss the bigger point. America is escalating the war in the Middle East with Iran for a reason. America needs a war. Britain needs a war. The military-industrial complex needs a war. And they have a war. Let's see what they do with it. For us, how does it affect us? It must affect us because we depend on oil and gas. We depend on imports and exports going through those regions, the Canal de Suez, the Strait of Hormuz, those areas, which are now under serious threat. So we'd have to begin to look within ourselves or else face famine and starvation. And that's why I'm going to go back to food sovereignty. Food sovereignty, a report came out, thank you my brother Ajamu for sending me the report recently, that point to the only country in the world that has anything near to food sovereignty is Guyana. This is pretty interesting. But we have to take a leaf for 2 or 3 out of Guyana's book. But we begin to do that within our own areas, our own backyards, our own farms, and so on and so forth. This is something that I'm sure we're going to be talking about as time goes on. I know today is Sunday and it is a day for the talk shop. I know that a lot of people are waiting to hear what our take, not just my take, but our take in terms of the Pan-African take on all of this. The bottom line is that this war, regardless of how it pans out, was always coming. And this is part of the wider global reset. There is a global reset that is underway. Everything is connected. The question is, how prepared are we for what is unfolding? Our job just can't be about analyzing it and talking about it and having conversations about it. We have to be doing some practical things to ensure our sovereignty. And I go back to what I said last week. Food and water are the two most important things right now. Food, shelter, and clothing. And I know it sounds as if I'm, reducing it, but I'm reducing it to the highest denominator. I'm reducing it to the highest. But anyway, I'll continue to monitor this as the morning goes on, and if anything comes up, I'll just shoot it right at you. But remember, we're in the middle of a global reset. It never starts with Iran. Everything is connected. From OpenAI, ChatGPT, to Palantir, to Elon Musk, to tariffs, to China, to Japan, to what's happening in the Sahel, to everything. It's all connected. And all of this came on the backside of the COVID-19 lockdown, because the COVID-19 was a material manifestation point, the hard line that was drawn to force the reset, because it wasn't happening naturally or organically. So COVID-19, the vaccine, all of it, we've been through these discussions already, so we don't need to go back over them. But just to say, everything is connected. This is how we look at things. And, champion Jaden Hibbert is also believed to be on his way out of the door. I don't know if that's confirmed. And so people are looking at, this is an exodus, of local field event standouts. From a scientific viewpoint, 2024 French Olympics, if we go back, was kind of a watershed moment in a very bad way for Jamaican athletics overall. And we talked about that in this space. For almost 8 decades, since Arthur Wint won Jamaica's first Olympic gold medal in 1948, that was in London, the London Games, Jamaican athletes have made some really serious sacrifices. We see them through them training. And they're doing this many times with little or no support by the state to fly the national flag. We've had many conversations here about it, but we've seen some changes. If you recall, every year for all of the 1990s into the 2010s, my husband and myself would go to the girls and boys champs. There used to be 2 different champs, and they became one champ. And we used to come back, and the stadium used to be literally empty. And I remember how we had conversations, and we quarrel, and we pound the floor, and we write the bottom line, and we read the bottom line. And we were just totally shocked at the fact that more wasn't being done. But we've come to see over time a lot of changes. A whole lot of changes. I can't even go anymore because it's not so easy, because, when I used to just go and just spread out, it's a whole different vibe right now. And that's good. So I applaud the changes that we've been seeing over time. So the changes are happening, even with the athletes, the whole thing. That's quite something to be fair. So we've seen that over time. And then later on, when Usain Bolt and Shelley and Fraser and them, Elaine Thompson and Sharika and all of those, even outside of Merlin Arty, so we could go all the way back to Merlin Arty, but the times I'm talking about when there wasn't much support at all was those times, right? And then later on, we saw a whole different thing with this cohort. So it's the wheels are moving pretty slowly, but they are moving, and so we're seeing changes. But while they're moving, people's lives and their livelihoods are happening, and you can't put that on hold while the wheels turn. So basically the daily struggles of the athletes, just like the daily struggles of the black masses of the people of Jamaica to survive in this climate of this rising cost of living. We're seeing poverty, regardless of what they say, the access to food and land, water, just general insecurity when you're thinking about your family. So, and a lot of this is seemingly unrecognized by the powers that be. So I hope I have some time later on to kind of go into this more, but just to say, go easy on the athletes. Stop it with the vitriol and the harsh words and this narrative of them, selling out for money. It's their job. It's their job. I understand I understand the context in which this is being argued, though. Let me not pretend that I don't, which is to say that I understand that there is this almost ownership that we have of the artists and of the athletes, and we want them to be representing the Jamaica flag. Well, if we do that, if we want that, then we're going to have to do more. I saw a post and a tweet by Juliet Cuthbert, and she's made some really valid points. So if you can check her out, and just to listen to what she says as a former athlete and as a minister, as a member of parliament, and also a JLP, which means we're talking about the administration right now. And she's made some very, very good points on just looking at that. One of the things she's done is to call into question the leadership of sports in Jamaica. I've always wondered, and I know my friend Andrew has said this to me also, I've always wondered why, and I've said it here on the program before, why we don't have a ministry of sports. Because if you put sports in the same place you put tourism, which you can, because what we do in Jamaica is sports, tourism, entertainment. Sports is not entertainment. Tourism is not entertainment. So I think to bungle up all of them ministry there, tourism is on its own, which is good. So for sports, you need that. If we're going to be serious about sports, we need a ministry, a standalone ministry, stand by itself, or at least to begin, a junior minister within the ministry who at least knows, somebody like a JC. I'm saying, anyway, let me take a break and go to my first guest who is in the studio with me. So we have some other things to talk about as the morning rolls on, which is to say, one, Harvard has agreed to the transfer of photos of enslaved people back to a Black History Museum. The daguerreotype photographs, that was in the news a while back. Harvard now has agreed to send those back. The Benin bronze, which have been returned to Nigeria or being returned to Nigeria from the Netherlands, that is also in the news. Belgium is moving closer to a historic trial of Patrice Lumumba. And remember, we talk about what they did with Patrice Lumumba. At the end, the funeral service took place, and all they had was one tooth. This was announced on Tuesday, June 17, that the Belgium government intended to prosecute the 92-year-old former diplomat, Etienne Davion, who is one of those persons who killed Patrice Lumumba. That's foolishness, if you ask me. Yes, prosecute somebody, but prosecute yourself too. Belgium, prosecute yourself. It's a whole country, not just one person. Anyway, so this also in the news. Then the DRC and Rwanda, they are about to sign a peace deal. Remember, the DRC reached out to Donald Trump to come and save them. And so, anyway, they're about to sign a peace deal. Then there's another story that's out there. The FDA has approved a twice yearly shot to prevent HIV. It's it's interesting because everybody's celebrating that 2 times a year. You can get the injection, and you can prevent HIV. But you know who they're testing it on? Sub-Saharan African women. You know why? Because of war being used as sex being used, rape being used as a weapon of war against women all over Africa. These mercenaries who are funded by these very same people who are making the vaccine. It's a very interesting situation. I hope that I have some time to talk about it. I feel very, very strongly about that. And it's going to take me to what happened here in Jamaica in the 1960s through to the 1970s. Over 10 years, when Jamaican women were used as guinea pigs without their knowledge, without their consent, for over 10 years, they did not know that they were being used as guinea pigs. There was a trial of the birth control injection named Depo-Provera. That trial took place here in Jamaica. Our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our aunties were guinea pigs for this, signed off by the Ministry of Health at the time. And the pharmaceutical company was called Uni something of the sort. It's now called Pfizer, by the way. CM1 then will make the COVID vaccine. And that test was done here on the island in Jamaica on our mothers. The side effects were terrible, including cancer, brain tumor, osteoporosis, thinning of the bone, all different kinds of cancers. Oh, I do have to go. I have to take a time signal. My next very special guest is in the studio. But these are some of the issues that I want to get out this morning. Hopefully I can get them out, including others. There's also another discussion on the island, right, that includes, so we talk about the artists, the athletes. I don't know why I keep saying the artists. And also, let me see quickly because I do have it here. All right, we'll come back. I think it's coming out of Nigeria, by the way, and it includes what's happening with Ken Sawawia. I mean, we had so much discussion here. You know what it is? It's a chicken. It's a chicken. Congratulations to all of the PEP students who are moving now into high school. The apartheid system continues. Apartheid is dead in the education system. Long live apartheid. Classism and same thing, it's rearing its ugly head. And so our children are being sent into different places according to them class and otherwise and so on and so forth. We'll come back to that. But anyway, congratulations. We'll be right. Remember, we had him in the studio with us before, and he's back this morning. Have him back with us. Gilly Priest, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Morning to you, your staff, and listeners.
Yes, good to have you back in studio with us this morning. Wow, what a time we're living in.
Yeah, it certainly is.
You're paying attention?
Yeah, man, try my best. You know?
Yes? So how you see the thing?
Well, the whole thing is a thing. What I appreciate about it is as if we are living in the past where we're actually witnessing what has happened to us over the last 400 or 500 years. We're actually living that experience by watching it in front of our eyes. So that's an interesting angle to take on that.
Yes,
situation.
yes, I can totally relate with that angle. You know, so we've been reading your book, of course, Forged by Time, How I Survived 45 Years in Prison. For those of you who didn't hear the first part of the interview, it was 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Right, so that we're going to pick up, because we need the time, so we're just going to pick up. We're not going to go into a whole lot of what we've already talked about, but just to go forward. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is now to say, you know, we underscore that when you were here last time, which is say you spent 45 years in prison and you managed to survive that, but you got out. When did you get out exactly?
I got out May 30th, 2024.
And you spent these 45 years in prison despite being innocent, and this is the thing to bear in mind, despite being innocent in the American prison system. When did you first recognize that the system was not didn't care whether or not you were innocent?
Well, basically, I started to come to that conclusion during the trial proceeding. Because one of the things you notice whenever you enter a courtroom, they speak in a total different language. They speak in judicial terms. So that 19-year-old person sitting there and listening to it. And one of the mantra of taking someone to trial is saying that the person has the cognitive ability to understand what's taking place.
Now, sorry to interrupt you, Raskiliprit, but if you just pull the microphone to you, just because we're a little bit off mic, and we want to get the fat sound, which is what I call it. All right, good. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, so one of the mantra of determining whether a person is fit for trial is a person's cognitive ability to understand the process.
Right.
This is what the court usually determines if a person is competent to go to trial. But as a 19-year-old, unfamiliar with the judicial process, whenever you go in the system, you encounter a different language. They use judicial terms, they use Latin terms. These are terms that they use to encapsulate the procedures.
Yes.
So when you're sitting there, you're going through, and in my case, 2 murder trials, and understanding nothing about the process. The only thing you have to rely on, and what I had to rely on at that time, is just say, okay, I know the truth from my point, and I've tried to convey that truth to the lawyer so he could explain it to the court.
And the lawyer you had was given to you by the system, or was this your paid lawyer?
Originally, I had paid a lawyer, a lawyer by the name of Iman Dexter. And what happened was, when he came in the court, the head district attorney who oversees the entire prosecution process, he does not try cases, he just oversees the process. He came into that court and called the lawyer in the back and told the lawyer he will not allow the lawyer to represent me, which is against all judicial process of a right to an attorney. Then what they did now was they assigned a legal aid attorney to me that was going to try his first case period. And that lawyer that they assigned to represent me, a week before he was assigned to represent me, he was a district attorney in the office that's prosecuting me.
Wow.
So what they actually did, they used the system to surround me.
Yes, yes.
So my voice and my facts could not get through.
How many, because you were appealing this, how many times did you appeal more than once? Were you able to appeal more than once? Or it was one appeal? And
no, in all actuality, they have the natural appeal process is a 3-step process.
Okay.
You go to the appellate division, which is like an intermediary court. Then you go to the court of appeal. Then you could go to the federal courts, which has another 3-step process. And what happened was, then you're allowed other post-conviction motions. So therefore, you can always keep going back. So for me particularly, for my 45 years, I was always up in the court.
how did you, and you write about that in the book brilliantly, how did you emotionally survive when you recognized that all these appeals and this process, so many different elements to it, that they had failed?
You know, one of the things that I always use also to straighten me, and based upon example that I see that was taking place in the prison, I learned not to personalize it. It wasn't me against the system. Because whenever, my opinion is, whenever you personalize your struggle from in prison by it's me, why are they doing this to me, it weakens you. You have to put yourself in the collective of your race. This is what the African people are going through on the face of the earth. So there's nothing personal against me as an individual. It's against us as a people.
Yeah.
And that gave me strength to know that on this level I am participating basically in a collective struggle.
Yeah.
But if I have noticed other fellow prisoners, whenever they get caught up in the me, why me, it breaks them down mentally.
Wow. So did you recognize this early on, or were you literally forced to recognize this gradually?
It's more a gradual process. It's more, and one of the things that I have realized that kind of helped me in this struggle is like every 5 years I had to reassess my position mentally.
Yes.
I had to reassess
mentally.
Mentally.
And when you say reassess, was this a conscious ritual?
Yes, because to go through this reassessment process in prison, okay, the first 5 years usually take up the 2-stage appeal. To go to the appellate division and go to the court of appeal, if you have to go through those processes unsuccessfully, it usually takes 5 years. So when they shut down those two stages, you have to now sit back and say, well, I'm not going home in 5 years because the 5 years is already passed. How am I going to approach this? And then by you gradually reading, occupying your time, reading about struggle, reading about other people's struggle within the system, you start to get a wider political, judicial view of the system. Then you have to reposition yourself within that new context mentally.
Let me take a break. So you literally became an attorney.
Yeah.
In prison.
Within the system, yeah. What they refer to as a jailhouse lawyer.
Yes.
And in that process, I had assisted numerous people.
We're talking about not just his book, but about his life. But he's written about his life. I'm sure there should be another book, right?
Well, for the entire period of my incarceration, I wrote like 28 books. But this was the only one I ever tried to get published. And the majority of the books I wrote, I donated them to the Schoggenberg Library in Harlem, in New York City.
There's a lot there, as I can see. This is something that I think the Jamaican, there are many different agencies, institutions, and government ministries that could learn so much from your book. One of the things that you write about is a relationship, the diplomatic relationship between two countries, Jamaica and the United States in this case, and how that impacts a Jamaican citizen who is imprisoned, incarcerated in the United States, even when innocent.
Yeah.
You mentioned it when you were here before, but reiterate a little bit.
One of the things is, there appears to me not to be a lack of a process. The Jamaican representative, which is basically the embassy and the consulate, how should they interact with the incarcerated Jamaican in these foreign countries?
Yes.
So what we find happening is, from my basic experience, depending on who the consulate is or depending on who the ambassador is, how they liaison with you depends on the person's personality. So the government may appoint an ambassador, and when we contact him, they don't even respond to you. Then if they change an ambassador or change a consulate representative and you contact another one, you may get a better response from that.
So in other words, there's no set protocol or policy that is in place. It depends on how the person feel about you. How the persons
feel about the prisoner.
And this is, so are you doing, to what extent are you trying to change that in terms of your engagement with on the island here? Because I know the work you're doing otherwise.
Yeah.
But do you have time to focus on that? And is it
we are in the process, because the organization that we set up, Forged by Time Limited, we are trying to encompass not only concerns between the prisoners in America and the foreign representative through the foreign ministry, but we are also trying to deal with the issues that affect people that get deported back to the island. And of particular interest to me also is also certain concern that I encounter with the prisoners who are incarcerated right here in Jamaica, because it is not too dissimilar in the experience when it comes to the interaction with government. Because I was reached out to by certain prisoners right here in Jamaica, and the same distance that's there between them and the government in Jamaica in terms of trying to get across their concern is the same distance between us who are incarcerated in foreign countries and the Jamaican government. There is no difference. And I tell you a similarity that came to me based upon certain research that I did while I was incarcerated. When you go in, I can speak particularly of New York State and kind of assume it in a lot of the different states. Most of the prisons that were built in the United States were either built on plantation where there were slaves or on slave posts where slaves were sold. You know, it is the same thing in Jamaica. The prisons in Jamaica are built on either where slaves were sold,
dungeons, yes,
right, or where the last slave plantation.
Yes, true.
And when you look at the structure of the people who are in prisons, these are the descendants of those who were most enslaved and the descendants of those who most rebel.
How does one keep its sanity in especially when you're innocent? And just reiterate for us, because you proved your innocence. Your innocence was proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. You still did 45 years.
Still did 45.
How do you keep your sanity? And then also remind us how how your innocence was proven. And you told us last time you were here, too, that the person who either later confessed or we came to find out who actually committed the crime, one of those persons was, what's his name, Marshall?
Yeah, well, this is what happened. My real true name is Michael Aaron, as you know.
Yes.
But my street name at that time as a kid was Gilligan. So when the police said they were searching for the alleged perpetrator of the crime, they were searching for a person by the name of Michael Dunbar, a.k.a. Gilligan. So when they arrested me as that person. And I kept insisting that I'm not that person.
Mistaken identity.
So what happened eventually after I was convicted, because when I brought this out to the lawyer, because of the fact that he was working on behalf of the prosecutor, portrayed himself as representing me, he did not pursue that angle. And when I reached out to the Jamaican government at that early stage, there was no response from the Jamaican government. Over the years, I keep fighting, and there was a public defender in Jamaica. His name was
Hamilton?
No, Earl Witter.
Witter, yes.
Earl Witter.
Yeah, you mentioned him.
He took up my case right here in Jamaica, and then he started to reach out to the government official, P.J. Patterson, Portia Simpson, Edwards. He reached out to them, and then I started to get a little response. And they were able to contact the Interpol division in Jamaica, the International Police. They have an office right here in Jamaica, and they were able to locate documents after they retrieved my fingerprint to prove that I'm not that person. Then they had sent up the criminal record of Michael Dunbar, a.k.a. Gilligan, to the federal courts in the United States. When the court received it, based upon their procedural argument, is that I should have brought that out during the time of the trial, so now it's too late for them to address it. And if you look in the back of the book, I exhibit all the correspondence between myself.
And that makes no sense. But why you mean it's too late to address it? Your life is at stake. You've been given a 45-year sentence. What do you? Anyway, we can get angry after the fact. You survive. I mean, just I get angry for you, all right? No. Yeah. But you survive this. One of the things you write about in the book, and no, before we go on, in terms of your innocence, is that people who actually testified against you came forward. Put affidavits into the system. Affidavits, of course, a legal document. Right. You can go to jail if you lie your life on your affidavit. So people understand what they were doing.
Yes, it was signed and notarized by, what's the equivalent in Jamaica, or you say a justice of the peace.
Yes.
Over there they call it a notary public. So you have to go in front of these people, sign and swear that this statement that you are retracting is true.
And basically, what came out of that was a level of police corruption, wasn't it? Yes,
because what happened was you get caught. Whenever you accuse the system, especially the prosecution office or the police, for inducing fabricated testimony from a witness, when the courts make a decision now, if you say that the recantation is true, it means that the allegation against the police is also true. So now the judge has to choose, do you prosecute a prosecutor? Do we prosecute the police, or do you keep the convicted prisoner in prison? The easiest choice for a judge who is a colleague of these prosecutors is to keep you in prison.
And so many people came out, so many affidavits, so many confessions.
Yeah, all the witnesses against me except one that I was not able to locate recanted their trial testimony. So basically everyone who testified against me during the trial, over the years, they recanted and informed the court that
this was information you were using as you went through the stages.
As I went through the stages.
To prove your innocence. I know you wrote about, and please read the book, because the minute you were told that the appeal had failed, we can feel how that really
despondency. For me, the art is, how do you pick yourself up?
Yes.
Because you're going to the courts with these sets of documents that irrefutably proves you're innocent, John, then they come back and they say, we don't want to hear it because of, you see, the procedural issue is what really blocks you. The courts basically tells you, if you're coming with an argument, you have to bring it within 30 days, or it's no good after 30 days. If you don't bring it within 3 years, it's no good after 3 years. So when you're staying behind bars, struggling to prove your innocence, for you to get evidence and documents sometimes take you 5, 10, 15 years. And when you get it, the court will say, no, well, based upon procedural rule, we cannot look at it because it's too late.
And you were moved around from prison to prison.
Yeah.
Some of those we only hear about in movies like Sing Sing.
Yeah.
And what was the other ones?
Well, I went to Sing Sing, Clinton, Elmira, all the maximum facilities I have been to.
Yeah, we just read about them things in book, and now we read about them in your book and
Yeah.
watch them on TV.
Yeah.
You know, Escape from so and so. These
Yeah.
are, you were in some of those prisons.
Yeah.
What would you say? What are some of the things you found out about the prison system, spending so long there and moving across prisons, maximum security prisons?
What I can say is, even similar to the same situation in Jamaica by corresponding with prisoners down, it is a world, basically it's a world unto itself. Society condemns basically everybody in prison. So whenever you make an allegation about police abuse, the prison administrative abuse, is automatically dismissed. You have no credibility as a person who is convicted. You have no credibility.
You have lost your humanness.
And I tell you what, in America, in New York State in particular, there's a civil law under the civil rights jurisdiction within the statutory laws of New York State. Anyone who gets convicted and gets a life sentence is considered civilly dead. By law, you are civilly dead. Therefore, your civil rights is sequestered away. You are no longer living in terms of how you are seen by the state.
Did you fall in that category?
Yes, I fell in that category because I had 45 to life. So once you have a life at the back of the sentence, you are civilly dead within the system. So when you go in front of any administrative body, any judicial body, any political body, you are reduced purely by law to a number. You lose the right to your name, you lose your right to your existence, you lose your right to your family, you lose your all civil benefits. It's sequestered away as long as you have a life sentence at the back. So whenever you go in front of anyone, you're going as a dead person by law. And because naturally the society is against people who are convicted, and in some cases rightly, based upon certain heinous crime, you could see where society
Yeah, so the person
repels.
is guilty. But,
Right.
but you're talking about somebody who is from day one saying I'm innocent, and then along the way proving your innocence.
Right.
We need a break. Let me take a break.
Yeah.
I'm how I survived 45 years in prison, dead to the system,
Yeah.
legally dead,
Yeah.
reduced to a number.
Reduced to a number.
What if any, I don't want to take you back through, because the book says a lot in terms of your experiences, but what if any were some of the most harrowing experiences that you went through that you still play over in your head?
Well, one of the first things that's really stand out in my mind is the first murder that I witnessed in prison that was carried out by our correctional officers. And there was a particular individual by the name of Butch Harvey. This was in like the first 3 years of my imprisonment. Well, when I was incarcerated at Comstock Correctional Facility. And I literally stood there, witnessed the officers beat Butch Harvey to death. Then they stuff a watch down his throat. And then on official document, he died on his own vomit. So that murder, that first one, I witnessed several murders since my incarceration, but that very first one brought home to me the realization that I can lose my own life within a second. Because what you realize when you lock up, you're at the total mercy of the prison guards. And let me tell you something that a lot of Jamaican may don't understand. The average prison guard in America is functionally literate. They barely can read and write. So what they are, these are people that is consumed by emotions and racial proclivities. So this is what I had to deal with for 45 years. An ignorant European who has the conclusion that he's all powerful over my existence. And whenever they violate your right, murder you, abuse you, rape the prisoners and all that, you have no recourse because your word has no validity. But that very first incident, and subsequent to that, by me going into solitary, because out of that 45 years, and a totality I may have spent about 6 years in solitary confinement. Not 6 years straight, but periodically I did a total of 6 years in total in solitary confinement. I have slept cuffed. My legs chains, my hand chains behind my back, and I'm left in a cell for 3 days and my stomach on the floor. These are some horrific, and let me tell you something, it gets so horrific in American prison. You have prisoners over there that want to come home and do time in Jamaica. Because this is what a lot of people don't understand. Jamaican prisons is rough. You can't even go down and say barbaric. But you see, racism is more barbaric than any physical condition, because what it does, it attacks humanity at a racial level. And I'm going to be totally honest with you, I'm surprised a lot of prisoners that come home, them don't take revenge on all tourists in Jamaica, because you're this racial, you have to really control yourself and have a brighter outlook on life for yourself and your family. But when you go through racial oppression, not just physical prison condition.
Please do not take revenge on anybody when you come back to Jamaica.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that.
I know you're not saying
I'm not saying that.
But, you know, but it's gone out, so I had to come back with that responsibly. But, and the book is pretty good at capturing what you went through.
Yeah.
Solitary confinement is not an easy place to be in.
No, it is not.
3 days cuffed with your hand behind your back and your legs cuffed?
Yeah.
3 days?
Yeah. You see, like you share another experience. I had like 3 heart attacks during my incarceration.
Yes, you wrote about that.
And there was one where when they brought me from the hospital about 3 o'clock one night, pre-dawn. And in this particular prison, whenever you walk, it's known as the upstate prison. Whenever you walk, you have to rub your shoulder on the wall.
So you have to walk, touch the wall. You going through the halls, going through the place, and this is the regulation. This is a policy.
Yes, because this entire prison is a solitary confinement prison.
Oh,
the entire prison. There is no regular population there.
So you walk and rub. You just have to walk with one shoulder rubbing on the wall.
One shoulder rub. So whenever they tell you to stop, you have to face the wall and let your nose touch the wall.
Yes, I see how you write about that. Seriously.
Okay, so when I came in that night and I felt so out of it that when they tell me to get up on the wall to rub my shoulder, I refuse. That night, I actually made up my mind to die. And there are several times within my incarceration when I made up my mind to die for whatever that particular experience was going through. And you know what? There's a sense of liberation in that.
Yes, and I picked that up in the book, that when you stand up to injustice in that system there, and to being the dehumanization of your person and your spirit and yourself, that when you stood up to that, I could feel through the words that for you was a moment of liberation.
Yeah, several experiences with that. Whenever you say you have no attachment to nothing material, no attachment to tomorrow.
Yes.
You're going to go through this experience. And you just see human nature. When you reach that stage and a human being looks into your eyes, they can see it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's a contest on a whole mental level, sometimes even just for a second, where they could see that.
But you were 19, and so that you were developing as an adult. You developed as an adult in prison, because 19 is still a youth, especially. I wanted to go on with one up and down and something. Although you had children and girlfriend and so on.
Still immature mentally. Immature.
And we get that from the book.
Right, still immature mentally.
You know.
But then when I realized, there was a point of my imprisonment when I come to the realization that I cannot just spend all these years fighting for freedom. I have to reshape myself. I have to grow as a person. I have to round myself out as a fully grown human being.
And that is when you accepted your situation?
No, I didn't accept the situation. What I accept is that fighting for freedom alone is not enough.
Yes. What about you, the person?
What about
your
me,
own development?
Right. So what I started to do, I was in the prison, they give you a compensation for some type of program. So I was making about, it changes, it fluctuates, but let's say about $10 a month. And then what I started to do, I started to contribute the $10. At that time, the ANC was still struggling in South Africa. They had an office in the United Nations. I used to contribute my prison money to the African National Congress. I contribute money to the Namibian SWAPO, the military organization. I gave money like when they had the earthquake. I tried to do humanistic thing to prevent my mind from going down into a dark space.
So this was part of the process of
surviving and readjusting,
yes,
and to maintain basically human. Because I tell you what, you reach a stage sometime when you're locked up here. You say if a plane crash and 300 people die, it has no effect on you. If you hear that the whole world burns out, it will have no effect on you. And then you realize, no, you're lacking something. So you're going to have to make a conscious decision. Even though you are being oppressed, even though you are struggling, you have to reach for that inner space to say, no, you cannot hear something where 300 people die and you have no response to that. So you have to literally try to save yourself. Because the civil debt that the system imposes upon you, it has a way to start to grow on you where you're actually now acting.
Yeah. The book is worth the reading. I'm once again going to just implore on our listeners to get a copy of the book, because it reads, it's more than just your life story.
Yeah.
This is for sociology. This is for political classes. These are for students of politics, of sociology, of you name it. I mean, law specifically. So there's just so much here. And it is well written. You actually, as we said last time, completed 2 postgraduate degrees while you were there.
Yes, I did.
So congratulations on that again.
And the book, they use the book intermittently within Bard College in certain anthropological and sociological programs.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised. That's something that can be used here in Jamaica too.
Yeah.
So let's just talk a little bit about it, because one of the things I note in the book is, and you know, I was also disappointed when you wouldn't call people name. You know, you see a book upon this person, you know, it says who.
Yeah.
You know, and all them something there is who.
What point? I'm kind of spun-minded.
I don't know. So you are in a system where people were there were people who were innocent, there were people who were guilty. People were passing through that system. Yeah. You ran into some high-profile prisoners.
Oh, okay.
And you wrote about one that you said you wouldn't mention the name.
Right.
In the book.
You see, basically, when I got arrested, at that time, Jamaica was going through political turmoil, right? So when I got arrested, at that time in New York City, the police had raided a house that belongs to an individual. He's passed away, you know, in Jamaica by the name of Vivian Blake. So when they raided that house, they had arrested people that was famous for them knowing at Jamaica, like Curly Locks, Baskin, these famous guys that was involved in political activities down here. I remember a particular day we were going to court to try to get bail. And all of these individuals that was known street people in Jamaica, everyone was given a bail for $1. And when I went upstairs to see the judge, they gave me $50,000 bail.
Oh. And
at that time, $50,000 was $1 million.
Yes.
In its equivalent. Yes. You know, and another famous person that I ran into.
So you ran into Vivian Blake?
No. Well, no, I didn't run into. But when they raided the house that he was in, these other Jamaican political affiliates got arrested. Were there, and they were brought into the
okay, so people like Curly Locks and
Curly Locks, Baskin, can't remember the other name, but several known persons. A lot of them came back to Jamaica and died down here during that during that political era.
Yeah.
And I was given $50,000 bail. But one of the things you asked a question earlier, right? Depending on how you deal with, one of the reasons to bring it around to the fact that come down to Jamaica now, we form the Forged by Time Limited for-profit organization, but it's really to fight for social justice down here and to amalgamate basically the deportees condition with the condition of prisoners in Jamaica.
Yes.
And we're in the process of having a conference for August 17 at the Simon Boulevard building downtown. I really like to say that is that
I want
to get to address those issues.
Yes, because coming out of all of this, and one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is really to say, where are you now? And what are the plans that you have? Because I know you're already gone headlong into trying to help Jamaicans, not just those who have been incarcerated, but incarcerated and also deported.
Yeah.
There are different levels of people who are deported to Jamaica. Are you focused mainly on those who are incarcerated?
No, we try to approach it from the angle of just deportation. Because what happens is, once you come to Jamaica, you are lumped as a deportee. And no one spends enough time to ask you, are you coming from the prisons? Are you coming from the street? Are you a civil violator? Are you a criminal? All that is pushed to the side. You are a deportee, you shall be treated as such. And that's one thing that's touched to me that I always rest on my mind is this. You see, when foreigners, especially foreigners from European countries included, you see when they go to any black country and get convicted, that conviction is not used against them on any level when they return to their country. You know. The American system will never use a conviction of an American in Jamaica against their own system. And that is one of the reasons how they get around that America have treaty with every country, what they call the prison transfer treaty. They don't even accept you imprisoning their citizen. So they create a law where say if you imprison an American in a foreign country, you can sign this paper and that person comes back to the United States, that person get their sentence reduced and they go on the street. And you will never find a European, when I say European, I'm including all them Western countries, including America. You will never find that person get convicted in a foreign country here, go over there, and it stigmatizes them. We in Jamaica, we know how racist those countries are, right? We experience it. But when we come back down here, the Jamaican government will accept and persecute. I just read an article, they're considering this, the security minister down here, Chang, they are considering now to put ankle bracelet on returning prisoners now. It's going through a discussion right now in the Jamaican government. So now you are going to...
You're re-victimizing...
these people. So even in my situation...
But there has to be... All right, so you are innocent. So we understand it within that context.
Yeah.
For persons who were violent criminals and gone through the system and now deported, how do you keep track of those persons and how do you prevent them reoffending? Is this part of...
right, and this is part of the organization existence. You have to have a reintegration process. You cannot create a reintegration process that is a further prosecutory process.
So that if the person has served his or her term, serve your sentence,
right,
then when you're coming into the island, you're saying to put ankle bracelet on them at this stage.
Right, that's what they are doing
now.
Is
to sentence them again.
Yes. That's what they're considering right now in Jamaica.
I guess I totally understand the reasoning. So you're saying that there's a different way to do this, which is a reintegration
you need
process.
a reintegration process because this is what when you land at the airport now, you speak to about 4 different government agencies: security, custom, justice, health, that they meet you at the airport. And they run you through a perfunctory stage. They have no time to individualize you. A, B, C, D, all right, get out of here. Once they put you out and you go through the door at the airport, what do you do? Who do you turn to? You have people that left Jamaica, let's say 6 months old, 5 years old. That person now is like a refugee in his own country. He's not just a deportee now. He's actually
because who do you go to? What do you do from here?
What do you do from here?
So what does the system currently provide, if anything, for that person?
All right. The system itself provides nothing. There are a few organizations in Jamaica, and the one that really comes to my mind is one by the name of Fury. And this was founded in New York State by a Jamaican lady, and she sets up a branch here in the Jamaica. And what she does is, what that organization, Fury, does, it do referrals. So if you come down and you live nowhere, they may have a liaison with, say, the Salvation Army, for example. So they would take that person to the Salvation Army. If they may take another person, if they have emergency medical condition, they may put them in a van and take them to the public hospital. So they try to do referral. They have no resources to administer the need that you may have at that moment, but they try to liaison. What the other one is food for the poor, right? They will refer you to places like that. Mm-hmm. The thing is, sometimes when they make referral, this person does not even have transportation
to get there. So what do you know of how chaotic this system is, or not, the extent to which it is chaotic, and where are the people? Because the planes are coming in, isn't it, twice per week?
No, once a month.
Once a month.
Yeah.
So the planes are coming in.
At least from the United States once a month.
Once a month. And how much time from the UK?
Well, I think all of them is like a once a month flight.
So in other words, you probably have about four flights one flight per week. In terms of what we call deportees, right?
Yes.
Not everybody on the plane that the people were saying a deportee would have gone through the prison system, but there are people who would have gone through the prison system some who were innocent and some who were guilty.
Right.
Where are they? Those who have been away from the baby, as you say, have nowhere to lay their head. Not even money to find a taxi to go to where they're referred to.
You know where you find them?
What has happened to them?
You find them when you go downtown Kingston. You go down by the Supreme Court, you see them laying on the street. You go into the park, Parade Park in downtown Kingston, you find they tend to mostly hang out in the parks and they sleep on the benches. You know those communal benches that line the street or monumental chairs and stuff like that? That's where they live and that's where they sleep.
You know, I was in Kingston on Thursday. And I was shocked to see how that level of homelessness has mushroomed in Kingston. I don't go to Kingston very often, but it was noticeable to me when I went there on Thursday, because you would see homelessness on the street, everywhere.
Yeah.
But for Kingston, I see an increase in the numbers and in places where you would not necessarily see this level of homelessness. These people are not mad. You can tell that this is homelessness.
Yeah. I share one experience.
And this hit me.
I met a lady. I was sitting downtown Kingston in front of Ward Theatre one day waiting on the transportation. And I approached this lady and I asked her about the number of buses that was going somewhere. And when she responded in total, perfect British accent and diction. I could tell I was speaking to a very educated lady. Not just because she had a foreign accent.
But you can tell when
the diction and her disposition.
Yeah.
And I asked her, I said, are you homeless? She said, yeah, she lived in England. She was a school teacher in England. She lived over there for like 30, 40 years. She got deported and she knows no one in Jamaica. And I sat there for a minute. And just thinking about it, it's almost tears want to come to my eye. And there's nothing I could do to assist her. But what I did was I gave her my house address. I said, if you're ever in a position, whatever, that you need someone just to listen to you, here is my number. You could call me.
So that your organization is critical. What you are planning, what you're doing on the island in Jamaica is critical to begin to address some of these issues. So let me take a quick break and we'll come and talk about that.
All right, thank you very much.
Coming from the United States, Donald Trump is, well, I'm not quite sure if he's saying this in a tweet or if he's saying this online, but he's saying there are many targets left. So he's threatening Iran. So Iran is threatening the U.S., and the U.S. is now threatening Iran to say there are many targets left, and that Iran betrayed diplomacy and all kinds of stuff. No, Iran's foreign minister, as you heard earlier, has been accusing the United States of betraying diplomacy after it joined Israel, it said, in its air campaign against its country. It was always America's campaign. I think Iran knows this, but is doing it in such a way as to stick within the narrative that they are pulling the wool over people's eyes with. So basically, this is what is happening. And 30 seconds ago, Al Jazeera is reporting no deaths in U.S. strikes on nuclear sites, according to the Iranian Red Crescent. The head of Iran's Red Crescent Society says there have been no fatalities in the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. He said, fortunately, we did not have any martyrs in last night's events in the U.S. aggression against Iran's nuclear facilities. And they're going to say martyrs, because this is Persia you're talking about. The very people's names, when you translate them, translate to martyr. This is basically what it is. An understanding of culture is important, but the demons and the walking souls and the skinwalkers and the narcissists and psychopaths in the West, they cannot understand that because they're just borrowing, skins and walking around in them. But there are people who are willing to be martyrs. All right, so let me go back to my very special guest, Russ Michael Gilly Priest. All right, so let's go to the work you're doing on the ground now, Gilly Priest, in terms of trying to catch those who are coming in, whether it is from finishing your prison sentence and are being deported and other deportees, and what the organization that you formed on the ground. Tell us a bit about the organization first.
All right, this organization was basically conceived while during my incarceration, because I know that the needs that I had that was lacking and the needs of other prisoners. And one of the big things that we meet, because in the prison over there, we are able to meet in our organizations, one under the banner Rastafari when we won the case for collective congregate service, and we had a civil organization by the name of the Caribbean African Unity. So we heard feedbacks coming from prisoners who had got deported, what the struggle they were going through in Jamaica. So we come down here and we incorporate. And the purpose of this conference that we have coming up August 17 is trying to bring certain government representatives, particularly from justice, security, health, and social welfare, to invite them to the conference to come and expound upon possible resources that deportees can access. Because what happens when you come, a lot of time when you listen to these representatives, they speak in elusive terms, they give you information that is not operational. You cannot use it. So we have reached out. Yesterday I met with the executive team that we kind of put together down here. My Virgin Oswald Dawkins, I have another Virgin by the name of Surf. And when we met yesterday in Trenchtown, and when we met, is basically sending out invitation letters to these 4 particular agencies, inviting them to send a representative, health, security, justice, social welfare, to come and impart operational knowledge to the deportees who will be there, telling them these are resources that may be available. This is a liaison that we call what the Jamaican government now is very concerned about: crime in association with returning deportees. So we, instead of just sitting back and watching a hostile development between government and the return, we're trying to build a relationship that can produce a form of policy that says, okay, you as returning resident, what are your needs? What are your needs vis-a-vis the government needs? Because they also have a need. They don't want you to come down here and exacerbate the condition of crime and violence and all that. So there has to be a midpoint where we can meet with them, try to alleviate any such potential by saying, okay, we can access the health system, we can access, because one of the things that I, on an anecdote level, if you go to the majority, 99% of the people that I know that got deported are still unemployed today. They have no employment whatsoever.
How are they surviving?
Well, some of them basically try to do Arkham peddling. I mean, they would try to buy a certain thing on the street and walk and sell it on the streets. Some try to survive by reaching out to friends and families in the United States that can send them something. They try to do the basic, what you basically refer down here as flat-foot hustling. But
what's the numbers we're looking at?
Well, the last numbers are looking at within a year, within each given year, you're talking at least maybe 6,000 people returning from different countries at different times. Majority of male. And the thing is this, the majority are returning. These are people who they have a sociological terms that they use basically where you say a person falls within a crime age group, right? So you're talking about a crime age group maybe like say from 19 to mid-30s. After that, most people start to outgrow crime or a criminal mentality. The majority of the people that's been returning is within that age group.
Okay. So we're looking at a possible crisis.
Yeah. And it's all going to depend upon how do we approach it. Because if the government is going to approach it from the point is that we're going to further their punishment. We're going to further prosecuting them because all we think as people coming from the US, and for my brothers and sisters, those who had gotten convicted for crimes, who said, okay, they admit they committed the crime, they see it as a further enhancement of their prosecution when they return to this country. They have a real grievance for that.
And that is why it's important for everyone in the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Justice, to read your book. Because even if you do not know, it carries you through every prison cell in some of the worst conditions, the worst prisons in the United States in terms of maximum security, and also in jail and holding areas and transit period and that whole situation. So you get a pretty good idea of what the person has already gone through, so that if when they land, you then re-victimize them.
Right.
What are you doing?
That further their grievance.
Yes. So there has to be that consideration. And then on the other hand, there is a security consideration. Yeah. We're very much aware of this. What you want to do is to balance this.
Right. I want to really bring the both groups together and say, allow government to listen to their perspective. Because one of the things, a lot of us who travel, because maybe a lot of people in Jamaica that never left the island, they don't really see it. Well, so when you travel and you experience the world and look back, you see racism in Jamaica too, But they try to disguise it as classism. Right? That is just to diffuse any potential conflagration.
Yes. So they call it classism, but it's racism.
But it's racism.
Yeah.
So when we travel and we go to the foreign man land, and we experience racism.
Brutal racism.
Right. And then we come back down here and see the same racism, but maybe in a more subtle form. We come back with the same resentment against it.
Yes.
So if you come back now and you come into a situation where you say, okay, because you have people who commit crime and them genuinely rehabilitate it.
Yes.
And them look forward to coming home to contribute in whatever way. Them can. And when you come home now, you come see the same people oppressing you.
Yeah.
In a more subtle.
Yeah.
They may have intermediaries.
But oppressing you nonetheless, whether it's through class, colorism, classism,
whatever ism,
racism,
right?
whatever
so
ism.
this organization, that's why we reach out to these particular agencies, inviting them to come to this conference on the 17th, so we can build a relationship that can lead to a policy that can lead to better reintegration.
All right, so the conference is going to be on August
17 at the Simon Boulevard building, 10-12 North Parade, Kingston.
All right, how can people attend and who's to attend?
Well, we're asking everyone, both deportees, families, supporters, sympathizers, anyone who can have any social interest, any societal interest, anyone with anxiety about, come and listen, because we're going to also have a testimonial period. People who both come and testify to what they're going through, and people who both came and are now successful and can share that successful experience.
Yes.
At the same time, we want people from these particular ministry to come in and give us actionable, and I keep stressing actionable. We don't just need information that you cannot use. We want when these individuals leave, a person comes up with a medical interest, say they can't get their medication, they're supposed to can leave with information from some representative from the Ministry of Health that say, okay, to get your medication, this is what you do. Go to your local community clinic, register with them, get your prescription, actionable information that they can practically use for whatever their need is. And then farm up, because right now the Jamaican government right now is forming a committee between all agencies that have an interest in the deported situation. And we are trying to reach out to them to say, put us on this committee.
Yes.
Listen to our perspective. Stop handing down decrees where you do not understand the conditions of the people.
Yeah.
And another
those who have been through it,
those
you
who
need
have
to
been
listen to.
And another sad situation that I get, it's good, but it's sad at the same time. When I did that first interview with you, I had people contacting me from the street where their family were incarcerated, both down here in foreign country. They're trying to reach out to me, both within the prison down here and from United States. I even got response from France who are asking me, what can we do, and giving me their opinion of the condition. So I just like to say one thing before, is that we return home, not all of us with bad intentions. And I know it's not practical for government to individualize every situation, but you can create a policy and a system that can address individual concerns.
And so that on the 17th of August in Kingston,
At Simon Boulevard building.
Right. What's the address of that?
10-12 North Parade, right across from the park on the northern side of the park, right beside Ward Theatre. That's a landmark that a lot of people can identify with, right next door to the Ward Theatre.
Come the authorities in terms of some ministries will be represented, you're saying?
No, we invited them.
They have been invited.
We are awaiting a response
and awaiting that
from
response. And so part of the idea of pulling people together is to say, this is what is available. Here are the options to learn from each other in terms of what are you going through, right. That kind of a thing. Right. And it starts at what time?
9. It's going from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
And you will be speaking?
I will be speaking, right. And other guest speakers. And Carla Gulato. She will be there, but we are also going to invite her to give her a spot to speak upon the conditions that she are familiar with.
Right, because she's doing a lot of work in the prison.
Right, we would like to give a platform to that part of the oppression that's taking.
All right, it's brilliant what you're doing, and congratulations on that. Please keep in touch with me. Let me know how that is going. I'll continue to talk about it in this space. Once again, it is August 17. It is in Kingston at Simone Boulevard Center. And in that space, this is where a lot of what we've talked about here, but mainly the practical work begins or continues. And
let me just say, basically, just give a shout out to basically those in the foreign country that's assisting me in putting this, like Jaboni.
Greetings, Jaboni.
Right?
Yes.
Robert Barnes, that's in Florida.
Yes.
Chihuahua Rastaman from Georgia. And several other individuals. Mr. Seward runs a radio program out of Florida. He's also trying to highlight the conference.
Yes.
And right here in Jamaica, to my guys that helped me, Oswald Dawkins, Surf, and other individuals. Thank you very much for that.
All right, brilliant. I'm sure we'll talk to you again before the conference. But my brother, safe travel back into Kingston. And, thank you so much. The book is called Forged, F-O-R-G-E-D, Forged by Time, How I Survived 45 years in prison. The author in the studio with me, Ras Michael Heron, Gilly Priest, them call him. Forged by Time, How I Survived 45 years in prison. Where is it available?
Well, it's available on Amazon.
Okay.
I want more shout to my virgin outside, Andel, who is from Ochiraya here. So when I come down here, I liaison with him, and I like to big him up too. Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. Thanks to your staff and your listeners. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in, my brother. Gilly Priest, Ras Gilly Priest there. Remember now, it's going to be on the 17th of August. For Gilly Priest, before you leave, is there a number, or how can you be contacted? Put on your headphone. How can you be contacted? Is there a number?
There's a number.
Yes.
876-880-0827.
876-880-0827.
And by email is forgedbytime@gmail.com. Forgedbytime@gmail.com.
Right, and that is Forged. Thanks, Raskele. Forgedbytime@gmail.com. All right, let me for that. I asked a question. So this is a 50th anniversary celebration. So the baby who would have been brought to KFC at 50 years ago, I would like to know what the demographics are. And obviously we see the psychographics, because sometimes we can't judge the psychographics. But in terms of the demographics, it seems to me as if, it's right. It's a Pavlovian demographic. And that is me intellectualizing it, the Pavlovian demographics. There's a lot to say about that, and I know that much has been said already. Some people are dismissing the idea of hunger and poverty and all of that. At the end of the day, it comes down to marketing. A big part of this, do not underestimate marketing, psychological marketing at least, and those from multinational corporations and conglomerates, for them, they understand the psychology of marketing. And so this is what it is. And this is not to say that it is okay. It is that how do we protect our people from this kind of psychological control through their taste bud. And this is not just on the on KFC itself, but just generally fast food and other consumer items, because it's just not food, because also, you have your five senses. And we see the same thing happen with fashion, whether it's different kinds of jeans or clothes or so on. And I have a brother who talked to me a lot about the wigs that we see people wearing now and so on. So there's a whole psychology around marketing that is Pavlovian, that understands very well that at some point, when you ring the bell, that you will get the people who you have programmed in this way to come rushing. And this is not just on KFC. What KFC has done is to bring this to the fore. And then it's from here now that we are to say to ourselves or ask ourselves, is there a need in the first place to first to protect ourselves, number one, and then as a nation, how do we, understanding the psychology, how do we protect our people from certain things? And then there are others, and this was where I went with it in terms of intellectualizing it. But I recognize it as a marketer. I recognize it. I mean, this is my profession, isn't it? This is how I was trained. So I recognize the marketing tools, the strategies, everything. And it is Pavlovian, a Pavlov dog situation. But whether or not you want to be Pavlov dog, sometimes you don't have any control over that, because what Jamaica did in the early days, and this is all part of how we consume culture. Jamaica is, a lot of Jamaicans, and this is something that we talk about a lot in this space, are of a mind that everything is of a higher culture than the Jamaican culture. Everything is of a higher culture than any African culture from any country in Africa, on the African continent. So that consuming certain products is consuming the culture. They think that if you imbibe, if you eat a certain thing, or if you're seen at a certain place, if you wear a certain thing, then you become the thing. But it's not true. What you are is a consumer, but you have been programmed to think that you now become the thing that you are consuming. We are what we eat, so that's another thing, but that's an aside. To say that you cannot consume, and the American culture is sold to Jamaica. This has been happening for over 50 years. It's sold to Jamaica as a higher culture. It's a classy situation. Higher culture, higher class, higher everything. And it's something to aspire to. So if you're seen at one of these fast food outlets, whether it's, any one of them, then you, just to be seen there, remember in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, just to be seen there was a big thing for a lot of Jamaicans. If your child passed them common entrance, or them PEP, or then what was it between common entrance and PEP again, then that was also another thing. The reward was at these fast food outlets. So our people have been trained to respond to this through them taste bud and them scent and so on and so forth. So this is basically what it is. It's something that we're going to have to unlearn. Something we have to unlearn. But while people have agency, I think we need a bigger conversation about how corporate social responsibility is probably where we need to go, because corporations have a social responsibility to your consumer. And I am not sure if I saw that in this celebration. And we'll talk about it another time. We are just about up on Cashpot. Just a few seconds. And Sanchez. Remember, those days, man, those days. All right, so we're going to go to the phone lines now to speak with my next very special guest, retired university lecturer and conceptualizer of the St. Mary Literary Festival. Paul Ward is on the line and not in the studio with me this morning. Good morning, Paul. How are you doing?
Good morning, Kevin. I'm fine. Hope you're happy.
Good. I'm well, if you two are well. Thank you so much for joining us, Paul, because we are on the cusp now of the St. Mary Literary Festival that's coming up just in a few weeks, or should we say days?
Yep, indeed, on the 5th of July, the second festival, as we need to emphasize. We had a successful one last year, so here we go again.
Yeah. Second annual St. Mary Literary Festival. All right, and let me just start right off by saying what a beautiful venue that this is held, though, because we don't talk enough about the venue, but this is in Port Maria. Tell us a little bit about where it's going to be held.
Well, if anybody knows Port Maria at all, the parish church, Anglican church, is right by the seaside, and the historic courthouse is just on the other side of the road. But next to the parish church is this, I think, octagonal building, right more or less against the sea. And so as you come out the door, you get hit by the sea breeze. It's a beautiful spot.
It's that dome-shaped building that's on your left coming from Ocherias.
On the left, yeah. Plenty of parking, so it's, Yeah. What I've said to people is if I hadn't managed to get hold of that building to use, I may not really bothered at all. and I should add that Mrs. Marston and her husband at the church, the secretary of the church, he's so very helpful.
Yeah.
So thank you to both of them.
Yeah, I remember being there last year, man, and just the ambience alone. This is a great place for poetry and literature, and just vibing at that artistic, creative level. All right. Yeah. So, remind us of what the St. Mary Literary Festival is.
Well, it's an attempt. It's a sort of an echo of Calabash, but not quite that. What we're trying to do, which is a little different, is to mix up established writers with people who are just starting out and those in between. So we sent out a general invite for submissions, and we had 48 come in, and we're hoping to include 45 on the program. A real mixture of established writers and those beginning, including a few school children again.
Yeah, love that. All right, tell us about the established writers who are involved this year.
Well, Kwame McPherson is very much involved. Charma Taylor, who won the Musgrave Medal last year, I think, is involved. Yes. Michael Record, who's a well-known writer, is involved.
Of course, yes.
Britton Wright, who won the Poetry Slam a little earlier this year, the Jamaican Poetry Slam. He's involved, very much involved. And I could go on, of course.
Yeah. And what the shape of the day? It starts what time with what, and then take us through the day.
Yeah. Well, deliberately, it's a fairly compressed day to allow people to reach and then reach home. So we start at 10 o'clock and we finish at 5 o'clock. Last time we did manage to finish soon after 5 and let people travel home. So basically, it's the 45 presentations are split into six segments, each with about 6 or 7 in each. In between, we've got 3 sessions, as I call them, 1 before lunch and 2 after lunch. In the middle of each session, in between the readings, we have what I've now called interludes, which is a discussion session, just to break the flow a little bit.
Yes.
One definitely lined up. Casey Garvey from Jaiku Poetry is looking at some advice to writers, and so she's calling her session a look at writers' rights. The other 2 sessions are not fully set yet, but we hope it will work out. One involves you, I hope, which is looking to some extent at African literature, and especially Ngugi, a writer from Kenya who passed on recently. And the name of that session we're calling Memory is in the Tongue. It's from Ngugi's book, Decolonizing Words. And the third session, which is sort of a parallel to that, is trying to look at Jamaican language. In terms of what Louise Bennett and others, I suppose, achieved in terms of validating the Jamaican language. So I look at Louise Bennett and also the story of the emergence of Jamaican language as something respectable.
It's brilliant. It sounds really good. We can't wait for that. Oh, I'll definitely be there. And, so you mentioned earlier that there are some students, again, which is what I really loved about last year, because we had the adults and we had established poets and so on, but to hear the children, that was really something out of this world. And you're saying that the children are also participating. What I liked last year is that there wasn't a segment for children. You just children mix up with adults, and everybody come up and did their thing, and this was really good. So, what's the format going to be like in terms of those segments?
Yeah.
Because
Well, once again, deliberately there was not a separate section because they were treating the children as adults. In fact, I'm not even sure I can call them children.
Right.
Because one young lady from Marymount High School, and they've been very good providing interest. A young lady, if she's listening, will be great. If she's not to worry. Tavia Robinson, I think she's 15. And she's written a piece called The Miseducation of the Commonwealth. She's an amazing achiever.
Yes.
I'm going to read a little bit of it quickly.
Yes.
The Court of the Commonwealth is now in session. The defendant is education, charged with pretending to be equal while leaving millions behind. The courtroom buzzed, the walls peeling and the microphones cracking. Rows of broken desks lined the jury box, ceilings stained with rain. A globe cracked down the middle, sat on a judge's bench. State your accusation, the clerk intoned. A small girl in a frayed uniform stood. She clutched a pencil, so worn it trembled in her hand. We were told we all took the same test, she said, but some of us had no desks, no lights, no food in our bellies. We didn't fail the test. The test failed us. Now, that's the beginning of a 15-year-old writing. Can you believe?
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. We're looking forward to just hearing all the pieces there on July 5. This is going to be on Saturday, July 5. Right after you, I'm going to be speaking with Sabira Gordon, who is one of the organizers of Fuwasinting, which is going to be on July 6th. And one of the things you sent me a note to say, these two things are connected. If it's even in terms of some of the issues that we're looking, that will be raised there in terms of the African literature, for example. So one is on Saturday, one is on Sunday. It's a very great weekend, I think, here on the island.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going down the day after the festival and heading down that way.
Yeah.
Anything else? We're really trying to achieve much the same thing, which is to get people thinking and to celebrate our proper culture.
Of course. Anything else we need to know before we wrap?
One thing, a little advert, please. Last year, we tried a bit of a little musical interlude, not really a musical session, but interlude. And last year, Papa Kervin obliged, but he's away this year. So if there's anybody listening who knows of who is a drummer, who would like to come along and volunteer their services just to play 3 or 4 times during the day, that would be wonderful.
All right.
So that would help.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul Ward. We'll talk to you before the event again. Just to say this, Mary Literary Festival is on this year, July 5, in Port Maria at the Anglican Church Hall, right upon the seaside, where the breeze just comes right into the building, and you're good.
It does indeed.
Thank you so much, Paul.
So the contact, if anybody wants to contact me, WhatsApp and phone number is 876-542-7600.
Okay.
And there's an email, which is STMARYLF, St. Mary LF at Yahoo.
Okay. Brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Okay. Thank you, Cabu. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too. And because, people are, there's disaffection and there's apathy when it comes to voting. And I know I see the question out there. So can we get these people, as many people, not just them, but as many people to line up for vote? Not really. We kind of more hungry for the foreign brand than we are for our own soil, and than we are for our own food, and than we are for our own things. This is how we were conditioned and programming. And for there to be a difference, there's going to have to be a deprogramming of the mind, a decolonization of the mind. And that is going to take a process, because the mind, a lot of our people, our minds are literally programmed and colonized. So we behave in the way that we're programmed and colonized. It's a process. I'm not standing in judgment. I've been in this space for many moons, talking about this very same thing. And, doing my little part over here, so. Some, I don't know, 50 years or 65 years, or whatever the years go, 63 years, 64 years, from 1962 till now, or just 50 years ago. What have we inherited over these 50 years, over these 60-odd years? You know, what kind of dignity? You know, what our rites of passage look like? Because rites of passage in Jamaica is an interesting thing, you know. When your children reach a certain age, when them pass them PEP, part of the rites of passage is for them to go to a fast food place in Jamaica. It's a rites of passage. And it's a ritual that means something to them. And if you're over 50, then that ritual is well set because you too were part of that ritual. It's a rites of passage. There's a reason why in our culture as Africans, we have rites of passage. But if you do rites of passage here on the island in Jamaica, you are laughed at, you're scorned, and you're told that you're sinful. But which one of the rites of passages, you know. But part of the rites of passage on our island don't include aki or kalalu or yam or fufu or kenke dukuno or whatever thing we name, what them use, pakasa. It includes something else. And remember, rites of passage, as we know it in our African culture, include all of them something here. Fufu and pakasa, mpotopoto. Mpotopoto in Ghana, what we call pakasa. You know pakasa? Yeah. And so on the continent of Africa, in West Africa, in particular Ghana and other countries in West Africa, these foods are included in the rites of passage for our young ones. And even in Ghana, we are seeing, and even in West Africa, we're seeing the colonization of taste and the colonization of culture and the colonization of everything, or we consume things. See, dead white people clothes is a big thing on the continent of Africa now. First time I went to Africa, it was 1992. I never see no dead white people clothes. Second time I went back in 94, I was shocked, out of my wits, frightened, shock, frightened. I couldn't believe it. So this is basically how things are evolving. Do we owe ourselves the right to protect our culture, our tongue, our spaces, and to decolonize the space? And remember, we just heard from Paul Ward where there's a segment that I'm going to be part of in the St. Mary Literary Festival that is entitled Memories in the Tongue. Well, food is in memory and food is memory. And what memories are we feeding our children? That is a question for answer to. I'm not blaming nobody or standing in judgment to nobody. What this has done is that it has taken us to a point where we must begin to ask ourselves questions. Because we can talk about meals in cardboard boxes and whether meals in cardboard boxes are more sacred than a communal meal with our grandparents and with family, which come from the land. Then why make we not talk about that? Why make we only accost the people them? Are we still calling the family to meet, to meal, to eat? Are we still, they say when the elders call the community together to eat, it is not because people don't have food, but it's because this kind of commensuration is where we get to know about what is happening to all of us and how all of us can help all of us. And then also to plan where we're going next to do whatever we need to go do. You shut down all of the community centers. You turn them into political spaces. Anytime we have elections coming up near, we don't know to get so much clot from, green clot and orange clot, pure clot all over the place. We don't have them hang up all over the place. By the way, we need to get all of them clot there and stitch them together and hang them on. So, oh, goodness gracious, let me hold that back. But there's so much cloth. All over Jamaica and end up in spaces that used to be community center. I want to come there every year in, year out, not recognizing that the community center is no longer open, that the people don't come to this place to play them sports anymore, to kick ball and play cricket, and to run from east to west and so on and so forth, and then turn around and cuss them, went and Turkey offer them $500,000 US to make them live. Listen, I'm not going to go with the crowd just for going with the crowd's sake. Each of us have to be true to how we see things, to the lens we're looking. This is how it is. Speak our truth, be our truth, and do our truth. And if we're comfortable with our truth, then it is what it is. What does celebration look like in Jamaica now? When we celebrate, when you're celebrating anything, you have a bucket of cocoa? Do you buy a bucket of cocoa, a bucket of pakasa, a bucket of fufu, a bucket of ackee? Put saltfish in there if you want. No, it's not so we celebrate. Celebration in Jamaica does not look like that. And this is something that has been happening over the years. So we need to look inward and stop pointing at them people there who are under some Pavlovian ritual and pointing fingers. And then those who want to talk about corporate social responsibility must speak louder. Must speak louder. How many days' pay must a minimum wage worker sacrifice to feel included in the fast food dream? And what is a fast food dream? What is a fast food dream? National corporations in Jamaica, because to what extent are they ensuring that Jamaica has food sovereignty? See, Guyana, I see an article where Guyana call Grace Company, and say, but wait, me soon have coconut I use from Thailand. I want to go on with. And we up here, so? No, so I come over here, so come buy Guyana coconut. And me see where Grace I say, then going into Guyana. Guyana understands food sovereignty. I saw it, that it look like. All the multinational corporations that are operating on the island that deal in food. How are you contributing to food security and food sovereignty on this island? Do we have a national farming initiative attached to any of the fast food situation here? Do we have any national farming thing in any community or communities? Everywhere, if a nation really cares about its people, when you're engaging in these kind of stuff, when you're coming in, you say, okay, you're going to be here. This must be it's 100% this or 90% this, and why not? And a farm that is set up here for the community must supply to answer. These things can work. They can work. They can work. They can work. They can. Globalization or otherwise, neoliberalism or otherwise, technocracy or otherwise. They can. It's not just fast food companies, but many others are engaged in the psychological science, which they're using to build their brand so deeply into the identity and the psyche of the people it is marketing. Me studied, me have an MBA in it. Me have more than that in it, for tell you the truth, right? We go way beyond the MBA with this marketing thing. I understand it. It's a psychological science. It works. This is how you build a brand, but you build it into people's identity. So, Mr. the Jamaican farmers who are supplying fast food outlets in Jamaica, raising your hand? Okay. The Jamaican government around here talking about Vision 2030. And we still have our people lining up like beggars. Pavlovian kind of lines. Pavlovian situation, and then you turn the state against the people. And what did they do? Gas something them? What did they do? Did they use tear gas? Or may I talk out of turn? That's what Vision 2030 look like. Our cultural nutrition. That's basically where we are. Decolonizing the Jamaican palate and protecting our cultural nutrition. And that's how we're there. Government though, what does it say about governance? When food is more accessible from any foreign brand than from local agriculture. That is a whole other thing. The other day, in one parish, I may walk up and down and look fruits. and couldn't find no fruit. Up and down and look fruit and can't find no fruit. We look it on this way, you can still drive and find fruits by the way, on the roadside. But there are many parishes in Jamaica where you can drive for hours and don't find not even one fruit from the land. I don't know. We're failing to feed the nation, man. About chicken and the other one is about turkey. Turkey or Sheldoners. Let me say it slowly for you. It means welcome to Turkey. Turkey hush Yeldiniz. Yeldiniz. Geldiniz. Yeldiniz. It pronounced like a Y. Yeldiniz. It means welcome to Turkey. I know that's another thing that people are very upset with me about what I said this morning about the athletes who are being courted by Turkey. My friend, a brother just asked me if the Jamaican athletes have been taking out their maps when I tell them to take out their map and look at the areas that we have been talking about a few weeks now, which is every Sunday morning I said, no, Google Iran on the map, or you can Google Iran and Turkey on the map. If you would Google Iran and Turkey on the map, then you'll see that Turkey shares a border with Iran. And if you just look over the other side, you might see Iraq and so on. So maybe, I'm not going to... Make we Google Iran and Turkey on the map, and maybe we can keep it. I don't know. 6 minutes after 9 o'clock. But on a serious note, I'll leave the Turkey thing for a little while. There's, a whole lot to talk about, as we said before. We mentioned some of them before. We told you this morning that the DRC and Rwanda are signing a peace treaty that was brokered by Trump. Remember, the DRC, they went out and they called Donald Trump to come in to assist with the, they promised him, thank you, Nick. Nick says pepper sprayed and beaten. I didn't even realize they were beaten. Goodness gracious me. Anyway, wow. Huh. All right, so yes, Turkey, no, I'm not talking DRC. So DRC and Rwanda. So they've signed this peace pact, and this is pretty interesting. I am convinced that it's not going to go anywhere. It's just a paper, because what's happening in that region is a deep, cancerous situation that's not going to end with a peace pact between Rwanda and the DRC. You have to bring Uganda into this. And I guarantee you, even though Angola is not firing at people, that Angola also has to be with an observer or something. This thing is not as simple as it appears. We say Rwanda and DRC, but then you have to go Congo. Because remember, them cut up DRC in two, so now you have a DRC and Congo. And then you have Uganda and Rwanda. Remember, Uganda and Rwanda are not agreeing on anything, And the terrorists that are using rape as a weapon of war against African women in those regions of Africa are coming from both Uganda and Rwanda, are supported by both Uganda and Rwanda. This is why I don't understand this peace pact. Let us see. But I don't think it is going to work. And hopefully next week I'll have a sister in the space to talk about this whole thing that's happening in Africa in particular, where we see rape, sexual violence being used as a weapon of war. She's really doing some great work, and we hope to speak with her next week in this space. I also told you about that HIV. They've got a new HIV injection, and it's twice per week. It's twice per year. You take it, and they say it prevent HIV. It's very interesting because It's a very interesting situation, because they're testing this on these very same women we're talking about in Africa. And they've said that in the documentation. So if you look at the documentation, go beyond just the news articles, because one of the things you do when you get a report on any drug or innovation in medicine, and it is reported by the news, the best thing to do immediately is to see where the study was done, who did the study, who published it, and then go read the study yourself and forget the news, because the news is bought and paid for. Right now, if you want to know what's happening in Iran and Israel, you have to turn off CNN, MSNBC, BBC, Sky, all of them, Bloomberg, Fox, Newsmax, every single one of these legacy media coming out of the United States and the United Kingdom and Europe, turn them off. First thing to do. It's hard to do, I know. Turn them off. Go to YouTube. Usually I say don't go to YouTube, but go to YouTube and find the journalists who are reporting from those places through and posting them to YouTube. One of the things I can tell you, though, is that something has happened, right? And I noticed it yesterday, just before Donald Trump escalated the war against Iran. Twitter, X, blocked every independent alternative journalist account and agencies account. So you couldn't get the usual places where you got the news that is closer to the truth from. All of them were blocked. That's what happened. I went and they were all blocked. I must say that all of my stuff were blocked too, on Twitter, on Facebook, Anyway, I've been on my thing from last night trying to get them back. Even my email was blocked. I cannot understand this. But anyway, so they blocked most of them. It's going to be more difficult now. I think maybe people are challenging, so you might be getting back some now as we speak. But, that is happening. But if you really want to get information that you can use to determine what your own thinking is on this, you have to turn away from the legacy media. Legacy media in America is not media. It's an extension arm of the military-industrial complex. It's an extension arm of the pharmaceutical conglomerate, and so you're going to get what they want to put out there. Anyway, so this is a situation with the clinical trials for the HIV drug, the HIV vaccine, 2 per year. That's what we're hearing now. There's a lot of excitement about it. I wouldn't be so excited at all. They're testing it on 2 groups of people. One is the gay, lesbian, and transgender community, and the other is women from sub-Saharan Africa. And they go as far as to tell you that they're testing it on women in sub-Saharan Africa because these women experience sexual violence as a weapon of war, as a military strategy. They're in areas where you have coups instability and the survival risk are low. And so this is basically why they're testing in these areas: the DRC, South Sudan, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea. You understand? And that brought me back to mind to something that happened in Jamaica in the 1960s to the 1970s. It was clinical trials, right? It's called Depo-Provera, and we call it the birth control injection, the birth control needle injection, not the pill, the injection, right? That is what it is. So in the mid-1960s, the pharmaceutical company Upjohn, which later merged with Pfizer, developed a drug, Depo-Provera, which is the injection for it's birth control. And they tapped Jamaica from 1967 onwards, way beyond the 70s. to be the guinea pig, the trial. This is where the clinical trials would happen. The Jamaican government, they facilitated the trials. And they entered into some bilateral agreements with Upjohn, now Pfizer. And we don't know what the regulatory approvals were, but they got those. And we are not able to see the specific documentation or the exact contracts because those are not available to us. The whole thing is still up to this day so hush-hush. But there was no informed consent. The women of Jamaica, who they were giving this birth control injection named Depo-Provera, they were not informed that they were being given this birth control injection in the 1960s and 70s and up into the 80s. They were not informed. They did not know that they were taking it. They did not give any written consent. They were not asked for any written consent. There was no acknowledgement and no knowledge of what was happening to them. We not see no evidence. It's something that you know that I've been researching this from. I've been doing sex-wise. This is from way back from 1998 up till now. I have not stopped my research on this, and I can tell you, the hardest thing to find is documentation. What we know, I've not found any evidence of remuneration to the women. They didn't know that they were taking this, so there was no money, there was no payout. It was a clinical trial. The Ministry of Health should have that information, though. Let me take a quick break. Came out because I sat up all night and watched the whole thing, When Netanyahu came out to thank President Trump, he took the microphone and then he turned up in front of the microphone, but he didn't remember to hide his reptilian self. So his entire reptilian is out there. Anyway, we're talking about Depo-Provera. It's a very serious situation to me. I feel strongly about this. I started looking into this because I came upon it in just researching generally, and then later on I started researching my own ancestry and was told by one of the researchers who was doing the stuff for me at the RGD that look closely at your maternal lineage, because it seems to me as if so many of the women in your family die from the very same thing, and this might have implications for you. So I started looking at it, and is in looking at it, me come to realize it look like the woman them in my family, some of them from them days they did probably on this Depo-Provera clinical trial. I am asking for reparations, and I soon come to you just stay there. There are a lot of us who we need to find out how the women in our family died, and then to look to see if they were on this Depo-Provera birth control injection, and because the side effects are pretty clear. So let me continue, because the duration of a trial in Jamaica, it began in the late 1960s and it went through to the 1970s. And then there was an FDA review in 1978, between 1978 and 1983. So all the way up to 1983. And what I'm not sure of, but what other documents are saying that I need to confirm, is that it continued beyond 1983. I believe that because Canada did not, they didn't pass it, or their health ministry didn't accept this until in the 2000s, I think it was. And you still have some country. There are also class action suits out right now. So let me see if I can get through this quickly to give you some other information. This is relevant to every Jamaican, man and woman, because something happened in Jamaica between 1960 and the 1980s that resulted in a lot of our parents dying from cancer, osteoporosis, brainstem cancer, bleeding, tumor in the brain, cancer in other parts of the body, and some other stuff. And these were directly related to the fact that they were on trial. They were on a clinical trial that they knew nothing about. So globally, the first failure rate in the clinical trials was a pretty high percentage, and the contraceptive efficacy was questioned, even though by this time, by the late 80s, there were some countries that were taking it on because of the results coming out of Jamaica. So these are the adverse events, them call them, the side effects, right? heavy menstrual bleeding and amenorrhea in many participants. Can I tell you, if you have any Jamaican woman now who depend on the injection birth control, they'll tell you they still have heavy menstrual bleeding and amenorrhea. They also have, this is a side effects, right? There was limited trial oversight, and this led to unreported serious events, including cancer and suicides. So our women, our mothers, our sisters, they were killing themselves during that trial. During the trial between the 1960s and the late 1970s into the early 1980s. And they were presenting with high levels of cancers. There were also long-term hazards were identified. For example, bone density loss. And because they were having this bone density loss, they were turning up with osteoporosis and all kind of other ulcers, right? Blood clots, depression, and because of the depression, a lot of them were committing suicide. And intracranial meningiomas, which is really brain tumors linked to prolonged use. This is what happened during the test. The clinical trial, 1960s into the 1980s. Jamaican women on this island, the government gave permission to a multinational pharmaceutical company, big pharma, to carry out a clinical test, a clinical trial on women, a clinical trial of the birth control injection when named Depo-Provera, and the women knew nothing about it. They didn't know they were on a clinical trial, they didn't give any consent for it, and they were dying from it. So, we don't see no major academic and regulatory reviews on this. No whole heap of FDA submissions, no whole heap of WHO assessments, and no hardly any journalistic investigations. I've been talking about this in this space since 1998. Although I used to talk about it more on a program I did on Tuesday nights that we used to call Sex-Wise. So, we can find, though, in the WHO documents and the FDA documents, many aspects of these trials. And so this is where I'm getting some of my information from. But in terms of specific trial reports from Jamaica, over the years, I was one of those first persons who worked with the former president of the United States on the access to information, Jimmy Carter. Remember, Jimmy Carter was the one who was really pushing the access to information thing, and they were reaching out to journalists across the world, and especially in the Caribbean. I was a journalist on that thing from Jamaica, access to information. One of the first things that I suggested, that I asked for, that I wrote for in terms of the access to information was information on this thing. I haven't received it yet. I haven't received it yet. But so the Jamaica reports are fragmented. And if you want to continue to do this, to help me for do the research, the archival records of the WHO, the Ministry of Health, and Pfizer. But Pfizer tends to dump its documents over time, so I don't even know, right? But there's some academic papers. The first place I found this when I went after it seriously was in one single academic paper. You know how I found it? I was doing research for Sex-Wise on birth control methods, right? I was going to interview the gynecologist and obstetrician. And so I went, as usual, to the academic journals. And there was a mention about Canada. And they said Canada was refusing to allow its women to take Depo-Provera. And then there was a one line that said, the clinical trials for this drug happened in Jamaica between the 1960s and the 1970s without the Jamaican women consent. That was the only line. And that's what I took out. And for all these years have been researching and asking and demanding reparations for the families of these women who died from cancer and osteoporosis and other things. And if anybody alive still. So this is where we are now. I've looked at the methodologies that they used. I don't have to talk to you about that. The current state of Depo-Provera, the injection, it is approved in over 100 countries. It is on the WHO's essential medicine list. It's also on Jamaica's essential medicine list. I understand that. I am not talking about today. I'm not talking about now. I am talking about what happened between the 1960s and the 1980s, early 1980s. The last major rollout that we saw of a country approving the birth control injection, Depo-Provera, was 2016 in India. India approved it only in 2016. And we have some countries in Africa and Asia who adopted programs around it in 2020. This is where we are, you know. People are still, there are countries that are still very skeptical about this. Jamaica licensing date isn't even documented because, well, you know why. And what we think, though, is that Jamaica, from them start of the clinical trials, they were all over this thing from the late 1970s. If you recall, talk to any woman who you know, your parents and so on, and ask if they were taking Depo-Provera, the birth control injection, in the 1970s. And that'll give you an idea. Because if they were taking it in the 1970s, they were the guinea pigs. They were guinea pigs. If you are a woman and you're listening and you were taking Depo-Provera, the injection for birth control in the 1960s, 70s, and early 1980s, you were a guinea pig. And the government of Jamaica, the WHO, and Pfizer owe you reparations. The initial FDA submissions in 1967, those were rejected. Again in 1978 and 1983, repeatedly denied. The FDA didn't get the approval for the drug in 1967 when women were taking it on the island. It didn't get it in 1978, and it didn't get it in 1983. It was repeatedly denied because the bodies that were tasked with approving drugs were concerned over safety. They had safety and data concerns. So, there are serious side effects to this. We talk about heavy bleeding, we talk about osteoporosis, we talk about reduced bone density, but there was also cancer. And let us talk about the mental health effects. These were underreported, but we're finding out now that the mental health effects were causing women to be depressed and to also to commit suicide. And later, it was connected with the intracranial meningiomas, which is brain tumors, and other health issues in long-term surveillance. The trial sponsor was Upjohn, Pfizer, in Jamaica. In the late 60s, 70s, early 80s, no consent was given. The duration was well over 10 and some odd years. The ethical considerations, massive, because there was low oversight, poor record keeping, no informed consent, and we end up with what they are calling effective contraception. The side effects are underreported and serious events are underreported. The adverse outcomes include amenorrhea, bone loss, depression, possible cancers, and even death. Now, we have some approval dates, which the FDA in 1992 is when the FDA... I'm so mad about all of this, I'm really mad about this. It is now approved in 100 plus countries, but the rollout has been staggered in terms of how countries have been looking at it. And we talk about India, for example, but also Canada and other countries, which when we come to talking, I have to take a break, but I'll tell you about there are pending lawsuits. As I speak to you today, there are pending lawsuits against Pfizer for this particular drug. I think we have to face this on the island in Jamaica. The FDA did not approve this until 1992. If you were on the injection, the Depo-Provera, between 1960 and 1992 to 2004, then you need to ask some questions. Depo-Provera is widely used today, and there are ongoing concerns about the long-term effects, especially bone health and brain tumors. The research is out there, and there are lots of questions. Canada didn't approve this until the late 1990s, 1997, I think it was, probably beyond that. The European Union, they delayed their adoption of this. I'll have to go into this some other time. And there's Canada, the EU, there are ongoing court cases out of America, out of Australia, and I'm going to leave you to do the rest of the research, and hopefully I can pick up back next week to tell you about the ongoing court cases, because as we speak, there are cases on the docket in courts in the United States of America and other countries around the world challenging this. Let me go to the phone lines to speak to my next very special guest, who is Roland Huslin, and he's joining me, I think, from the UK. I'm here, Roland.
I was.
Hello? Okay, no, I'm not. It's that interesting. I'm not hearing him at all. No, that wasn't him. Let me go here and see if this will make a difference. Are you hearing me, my brother?
Yes, I am hearing you. Can you hear me?
Brilliant. Loud and clear. How are you doing?
I'm great. And you?
I'm well, as long as you two are well. Thank you so much for making the time coming on this Windrush Windrush Day. We talk a lot about Windrush in recent times. It is such a pity that so many of us are connected, but have connected ourselves. My father, my great-grandfather, all of my people who went on that ship into England and other ships, that we connect ourselves back to the ship and to the port. Isn't this unfortunate?
Yes, it's unfortunate to a great extent. Before I get going, I'm going to do a bit of correction. First of all, I am not in the UK. I'm currently in St. Thomas in Jamaica.
Okay.
So I'm not in the UK.
Okay. All right. Great.
Right. So regarding the ship, it's not just the Windrush generation are those individuals who traveled to the UK between 1948 and 1971. Not just on the ship. So the mode of transportation is of no relevance to a great extent. They could have gone on a plane, whatever mode of transportation.
No, I meant in terms of what we call it. I meant in terms of what we're now calling it. You know, it's such a pity that we're calling it that. But it is within this context that we're having the conversation. Today is Windrush Day. What is this about?
Yeah. Very much so. So I'm going to get onto the ship.
Yeah.
On the 22nd of June, 1948, the Windrush, HMT Windrush, which was a former German troop carrier that was seized by the British in the Second World War and was renamed the Windrush, and Windrush is a village in the UK. And as a result of that, to an extent, those particular cohort, that particular group of individuals were called the Windrush generation. Those who traveled from Commonwealth countries between 48 and 1971 were named after the ship, so to speak, namely the Windrush generation. So that's the connection.
That's the context. That is the context. Right.
Precisely, yeah.
Yes. In other interviews where you have spoken about this, you talk about those who were deported from the United Kingdom, and help us to understand, talk a little bit about that. Why should these people that entered the UK before their 18th birthday and ended up being deported apply for compensation within the Windrush scheme? Because there is a Windrush scheme.
Yes, it's pertaining to the scheme. So, in order to put in the context, so to speak, and to make sense of it, I'm going to sort of lay out eligibility as to who can apply to the scheme.
Yes.
That particular group of individuals that are allowed to apply to the scheme. And there are four primary groups, so to speak, or cohorts, so to speak. You entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973 from a Commonwealth country, and you were actually in the UK on the 1st of January 1973. Secondly, you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1989 from any country, including Commonwealth country, and you've continuously lived there. Thirdly, you were born in the UK and your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. And fourthly, this is the most relevant one, possibly the most relevant one to those who have been deported from the UK.
Yes.
You're born, you enter the UK from a Commonwealth country before your 18th birthday, and your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. I repeat that. You entered the UK before you got to your 18th birthday, and your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. You too can apply to the scheme. So in terms of those that were deported from the UK, and you'd have seen many of those individuals, many plain loads of Jamaicans being deported from the UK over the past few years. Yes. Many of those individuals would have entered the UK before the 18th birthday, and as a result of that, quite a number of those individuals could apply to the Windrush schemes, and there are two schemes actually. I know we mostly call it compensation scheme, but there's the Windrush schemes, yes. Compensation and status. Those individuals who have been sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, please. You go ahead.
No, I'm saying that I've had conversations with attorneys who have been working on some of these stuff. For example, Rachel O'Keller has been on many times talking about this, and I know that there was a moment where so the scheme is there, but there was just so much confusion around it. People didn't know if they were eligible, and even people were being deported, even though they should not have been. Some of those cases we've talked to Rachel about, because she herself has been successful in defending some of these people. But it seems to me as if how in terms of information, is it that the information is not readily available, or people do not know where to go to get it?
It's a mixture. The information is readily available somewhat to a great extent. You can just Google the Windrush compensation scheme and you'll hit the government website. So the British government website, somewhere close to the top, click on that. It will take you to the Windrush compensation scheme page. However, I'm of the view, Justice for Windrush Generation, which I'm a co-director of, is that instead of these impacted individual, I don't want to say victims, potential claimants, instead of them having to approach and go out there and do the heavy lifting as to do the search, we are of the view that the scheme should be taken to them wherever they are, the marketplace, etc., etc. And a lot of that heavy lifting should be done by the British government, because the British government, the Home Office precisely, they are the one that disrupted and impacted these individuals' life. And at the inception of the launch of the scheme, the whole idea, the spirit of the scheme was to put those impacted in the position they would have been had they not had their lives impacted by the Home Office policies that were influenced by racist ideology. And there's report about that. Therefore, it's the Home Office should be reaching out to those people and find them wherever they are and be saying to them, come forward, apply to this scheme.
We saw some resignations from within the compensation scheme in terms of what the government had put in place. And we saw even a very high-profile resignation where the woman who was head of that just stepped away and said that there's so much racism, classism, and division in all of this that you wonder what it is that the British government really wants to achieve from all of this. Is that they were caught with their pants down and had to do something. They did it, but then still people are being literally locked out of it. This is my reading of it. But what is good is that you are laying out clearly, and it is pretty clear for us this morning, what the different categories are, and especially for those persons who are deported and on the island. There is information that is critically relevant to them. But how do they claim into this? If they listen to you now and they know that, I need to claim for this, how do they claim into it?
First move would be to get in touch with myself, Roland Housing, Justice for Windrush Generation, and by using the following telephone number. It's a WhatsApp number, and it's the UK number 447-999-178-111. That is 447-999-178-111. I Google my name, Roland Houslin, ROLANDHOUSLIN. Google that and you will end up somewhere near the top.
Yes.
In terms of in the top on Google. In terms of category, because this is very much relevant to quite a number of individuals that have not entered the UK. Yes. There are three primary categories. Primary claimant, you the individual that has been impacted. Deceased estate claims, and there's absolutely no difference between the deceased estate claim and a primary claim, except that that individual that would have been eligible and entitled to claim is now deceased. Consequently, the next of kin or the executor of that individual's estate can make the claim. Therefore, you could be in Jamaica, be a daughter, etc., etc. The next of kin, and you make that claim. And thirdly, close family member claim, and there are 6 categories: wife and husband off, children off, siblings off, step-parent and stepchildren are cohabitee, are common law wife or husband, so to speak.
How do you prove your claim? Is it something that's easy to do?
It's easy, depending on the circumstance, and that's where people like myself come into. So, well, I say we get the story first. I use the term story very, very loosely. The story is what was done to you, what happened to you, and it's not an exercise in English literature, so to speak. So, I was born in Jamaica. I entered the UK 1970. Whenever I was working at ABC, Longs and Longs, whatever, Limited. One day the employer said to me, bring in your passport to prove you got the right to work in the UK. Took in my Jamaican passport, they were not uphold it. Consequently, I was fired. Okay? Something. So that is the story. Then how do we evidence that? Myself, I will get in touch with HMRC, that's those people that pay your taxes to your national insurance contribution, and we will find a footprint in the system to establish that you were in the UK and you were paying taxes and it was disrupted. Something along the lines like that. Get the story first, what was done to you, when it was done to you, how it was done to you, so to speak, and we'll go from there. So at this stage, do not worry about the evidence. People like myself will go out there and search and find the evidence. And it's not just me. There are many other individuals that work alongside me to actually get these claims through to come to bring them to fruition or a successful outcome, so to speak.
Tell me a little bit about that experience in terms of are people calling out? What are they? What's the traffic like in terms of people reaching out to you, and what's the success rate in terms of getting them into the system and getting the claims?
I've had a number of, I've been doing a number of media campaigns and interviews with Mota, etc., and I've been having calls from across the world, from Africa, Ghana, Trinidad, etc., and I'm currently representing numerous individuals from across the world, from USA, Canada, Trinidad, Barbados, etc., that are making claims for compensation as well as returning resident visa. So those individuals who enter the UK, lived there for 6-7 years, etc., left the UK and are now out of the UK for more than 2 years, would have lost indefinite leave to remain. However, they can apply through the Windrush scheme to get that returning resident visa to go back to the UK and live there, picked up from where they're living and from where they were, so to speak, and through the scheme, and you do not have to pay to apply through the scheme. Applying through the scheme is free of charge. It's free of cost. There's no charge there. So you can apply for returning resident visa. I'm representing numerous individuals from across the world. So what I say
is it a lot of paperwork?
Get engaged. Repeat that, please.
Is it a lot of paperwork?
It is a lot of paperwork in some circumstances, and the scheme, the application process can be a bit complex. That's where individuals like myself that do understand the intricacies and the detail of the scheme and the approach that needs to be taken, that's where we come in and we can hold you and then take you through the process, so to speak.
All right, great work, because, this is something that I know is bothersome for a lot of people. And, if someone is out there who can assist them, this makes such a big difference. Are there any events around today's date or that's upcoming?
Yeah, a number of events coming up that is primarily aimed at the Windrush compensation scheme, so to speak, for the Windrush compensation. First of August, Emancipation Day will be out there at Poolside in Harborview, where there will be, it's a family fun day, Windrush related, so to speak, engage and socialize, get information about the Windrush compensation scheme. Following day, 2nd of August, Rumble St. Thomas will be there, similar things, Windrush Fun Day. In the evening, we're going to have Windrush in session, and there's going to be a live band, and a couple of prominent artists will be there. Not 100% confirmed yet, so I'm not going to throw any names out there. 1st of August, Poolside, Harborview. 2nd of August, Kynes Lawn, Rumble District, St. Thomas, Windrush in session, and the Windrush Fun Day. You'll able to get all the relevant about the Windrush compensation scheme and the Windrush status.
Sounds good. Are you connected to the Jamaican government in terms of what they are doing? Because I know they did a whole mural and they have been talking about it and so on. I haven't heard anything in recent times, but are you in any way connected?
I personally am not connected to the Jamaican government. However, I've engaged with them with the High Commission in the UK at various levels. My colleagues engage with the Jamaica High Commission in the UK. And as I said earlier, it's not just myself. There are quite a number of individuals out there doing work that I'm doing. It's not just Roland Hosling. There are many others as well. So there has been some engagement with the Jamaica government. And I'm assuming there'll be other engagement going forward. Last week, Thursday, the Windrush Commissioner was in post, announced by the Home Secretary. His role primarily to advocate for the Windrush generation across the world and their descendants, those that have been impacted. So I would assume, pretty sharpish, you would be engaging with the Jamaican government, whether it be the High Commission or whomever, at some level pretty soon. And because that's what we have campaigned for over the past 3 years, Justice for Windrush Generation, led by myself and my colleague Gareth Craig. We have been lobbying the UK Parliament, saying to them, the scheme as is not fit for purpose. Therefore, the scope of the scheme needs to be widened. It needs to be revisited, and the level of compensation needs to be uplifted. Starting point, as is at the moment, is 10,000 up to 100,000 pounds. Similar scheme like the post office scheme, their starting point is 600,000 pounds. And we are saying we always should align, the Windrush compensation scheme should align with the post office blood infected scheme, the COVID compensation scheme, etc. Round about 600,000 starting point. In order you can put those impacted back in the position they would have been had they not been impacted by these legislation that were influenced by the politics of race, racist ideology, so to speak. And the report from the 26th of September last year pretty much state that these policies were influenced by the politics of race. Utterances in the 60s were there were too many black and brown people that were entering the UK. Therefore, ways need to be found to reduce the numbers.
Create a hostile environment.
60 hostile environment, 68 legislation, 71 and 83 legislation impacted the Windrush community, the Black Commonwealth community, so to speak, disproportionate.
So Roland, I'm gonna invite you into the studio to we just discuss this, to open the phone lines, have people call in who want to reach you, because I know this is of concern to a lot of Jamaicans with ties back to the UK. This is more than we actually think, and people within the Caribbean, as you said before, in the African diaspora. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Once again, you're in Jamaica now. How do people find you?
I call me on WhatsApp and then we'll go from there.
So this number that I have, which I'm going to say now, this number that's on the ad. All right, so it's 011 44 7999 178 111. So it's 011 44 7999 178 111, and it's Roland Hosling. And this hour is brought to you, thank you so much, Roland, by the Windrush Compensation, celebrating Windrush Day, which is today, June 22. Yes, man, I want you in the studio. I think I need to claim something to become my grandfather did go down upon the Windrush thing same way. We will
certainly talk about that.
When you come
we'll have that discussion, certainly.
When you come in. Thank you so much, my brother, Roland.
Appreciate it. Many thanks. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. So, Mr. Bigay, welcome to the space. 2 minutes to 10 o'clock. I'm good like that. What did you go to Kentucky? Did you buy chicken the other day? I shouldn't be saying, did you go to Ken anything? Did you go to, did you go to Marie's place?
No.
Okay, grab a phone.
No, actually, it came to me.
Oh, it came to you?
No, anywhere in the world you were, it came to you.
Oh, yes, it came to you. I was wondering if you actually got any of the... when you said came to you, did it come to you by way of the socials in terms of you could only look?
It came to me by the way of the crowd. Anywhere you were anywhere at all in the towns of this country.
Yes.
You were caught up.
Yes, yes.
In the crowd. I happened to have been in Kingston on Wednesday, and it was an unusual day. it was an unusual.
It's unusual. You got big.
No, man, it was an unusual day in terms of the traffic, in terms of the crowds,
Okay.
in terms of the.
You do know that is an understatement, right?
It is.
Right. There, I'm just checking. I'm just checking.
No, unusual.
Yeah, unusual.
Phenomenal is more.
Yeah. Phenomenally unusual.
No, man, I tell you, it came to you. It
Yes,
came to
it
you.
did.
You didn't have to be buying anything for it to come to you.
No, yeah.
You were caught up in the
Yes.
in the frenzy, people bouncing you left, right, and center with their buckets of chicken, their freebies and all of the rest of it.
Yes.
And no, it was crazy. I happened to have passed 3 locations, and one was before midday, one was early afternoon, and the other was in the evening, and the situation was no different on any of the occasions.
Hold on, she tell me at the time we're not on the festival song, so this is festival song time. So I play it in the background and I just pull it up. Big go and give me 2 minutes. Nice.
No, I wanted to ask you. You mentioned Buju Banton's song of a couple years ago. You remember how the song go?
Big, so this is a trick question.
No. You remember how the song go? I'm asking.
Jamaica Sellout. Jamaica for Sale.
No. Hum the song back to me.
Jamaica for Sale. I can play. Remember, I can't carry a tune in a bucket, so you cannot ask me to hum the song.
All right. You remember who won the year before?
No. That's why I say when Buju entered.
All right. You remember who entered after?
So this is another trick question. No.
You remember who entered after that?
Yuck, which is Turkish for no. Which is because I want to change it. I want to change the conversation to Turkey.
All right.
We want to move from chicken to turkey.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Right. We have moved.
So your athletes have gone to Turkey. You don't have any thinking on it?
No, I do. I do.
Which is the same.
I do. There are 2 schools of thought. One is whether or not moving or changing your nationality is going to, because the conversation is that you have to be securing your future for your family and your friends and yourself.
Right.
And I am asking if moving to another nationality would increase your earning. Isn't it your speed or the distance that you throw or whatever else?
But how do you do that for in another space that is willing to pay for you without doing because you cannot compete for that other country without changing your nationality?
Yeah, I agree. But right, so I'm asking, how do you increase your income?
In the same way, like those of our people who gone to America, who know, and England, who are now British citizens and American US citizens and earning much higher income, I suppose.
Not really.
Because, my family, yes.
No. You can't compare the two because they operate in 2 distinct ways. One, I understand you're a lawyer, you're a nurse, and the opportunities present themselves for a higher salary. Right? So you actually earn for the bucky master if you want, right? At a higher salary. Now, I am saying that whether you are Jamaican, you are American, you are from Turkey or whatever, if you get called to a meet that will pay you, the price that you charge is not based on where you come from. It is based on...
It is. Let me tell you, it's not you charging it, but let me tell you how it's based on it. Me and your athlete, you should know better than this.
Let me tell you.
Remember, all right, first thing that I heard that Turkey is doing is giving a base money just for getting you, $500,000 US that you get just for come. Not connected to anything.
Okay.
But remember, Turkey pays higher for if you get a gold medal, Jamaica, if you're running for Jamaica, you might get it. The money when you go back to your country, you might get a money. Or until let's say I get a house, you probably not get a house. Or you don't even know what you're going to get. I don't know how it works, but I know that with Turkey because I've been looking at it.
And that's my problem. I
They
really don't know
no, they do. They have because they have it all laid out, and it is. There is a scale. Like if it's gold, this is what you get. If it's silver, that's what you get. If it's bronze, that's what you get. Mm-hmm. And this is quadrupling anything, a lot of what is out there, because Turkey, it does what it does the way it does.
In whatever sport, though, in the Olympics.
In the field, because remember...
No. I'm asking.
Okay.
In what event do these prizes come? Is it at the Olympics? Is it at the
I suppose all the world championships, like the Olympics, the world... I suppose all of the national championships. And I don't know if there's another element to it where if you were nationally otherwise.
I think we need like Robert Williams in this conversation because.
Do you want to call him?
No, because he.
You know, trust me.
He would be able to clarify a lot of the
What is it that is not clear?
No, because I'm not quite sure of these offerings because
you don't believe what I said.
No. I think the bulk of an athlete's earnings comes from... Hold
on there. Nick, Nick, talk loud through the mic, Nick. Go ahead, Nick. All right, go. Come, you're up on my phone, so you have to talk. No, put you on the mic.
I'm not quite sure. People getting paid just to represent the country, whether them win, lose, or draw, come last, or it doesn't matter. Turkey is using their image.
So they're going to be paid whether you get... But if you get like a gold medal, you're going to... There's the what you get when you...
Getting paid to highlight Turkey.
Nick, I understand the analysis of the situation, but Big A is asking a specific question, which is, how does you changing your... Turn on your radio, Nick.
Yeah, well, all of those are bonus.
Bonus. All right, so the bonus pay is pretty high, isn't it?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, let's not even go to the bonus. Just imagine a country is paying you, they're giving you $500,000 just to sign with them and say that you're the citizen, and then give you $30,000 every month, whether you can up, skip, jump, or walk, whether you're injured or not. You're getting this over, I think, a 7-year period.
Well, thank you for the clarification.
What clarification? You're not clarifying nothing. Nick, come off on my phone because it's Big A come and go and like some, you don't know me. I said, Nick.
No.
Hold on a little.
Talking about, it's just Big A wasn't getting it.
Nick, let's stop it.
I just never understood. Why are you shouting?
Nick, please don't tell Big A that I was talking.
I was simply asking a question.
Nick, you see how he treat me like some me girl? Nick.
So
no man, if you know Big A long enough to know that Big A is going to want what he considers expert analysis.
Which he want a male analysis. It's a male analysis he want.
No.
Right?
No.
You want to see how in here look at me like you don't know what you're saying.
No, I am just asking.
You don't remember that you're an athlete in earlier times?
I mean even tell him nothing else. Me and him an athlete, we won at the stadium. And
so how come them never ask you to be a turkey? A turkey, yeah.
That's why my father took me out for the team because when we won at the stadium,
why did they ask you to
me
be
never
a turkey?
get the scholarship to go to America. My father said, "I'm not running for nobody no more because I better not go to academic way because I'm a treat like second class citizen. That's why I'm not running anymore. Because my father said no, because you're coming first and second, and you're not getting the scholarship.
No, you're just running them out.
No, it's true. No, it's true.
No,
yeah, my sister Sonia.
No, you're just running your mouth.
Right? Mashallah. Up here Turkish me attack this man. Mashallah. Estağfurullah. I am out ahead of this.
He's not the only one in Okabu. Bahrain is doing the same thing.
Oh, Bahrain is doing it too?
Remember, Paul came out swinging the other day, complaining that he could have been richer, much richer, had he took up an offer. So it's not no, they have been getting this, and we have Jamaicans. The next thing we need to acknowledge, they are going to be living in Jamaica. Well, they can choose to still live in Jamaica and benefit. All it is that when these
they
things
can live in Jamaica?
Yeah, I mean, you have people who know are Bahrain citizens and all of that.
So let me ask you, Nick. So what are the rules of the governing body of IOC? Whose rules?
No, IAAF.
IAA, what are the rules and the protocols? Because how can you...
Well, they have rules like if Jamaica and Turkey agrees, they can represent Turkey. It can be sooner in terms of them running for Turkey. If Jamaica doesn't agree, then they have a 3-year window that they must sit out and for the Olympics. And so that is why they're making the move now, because if everything comes through now, then they are qualified for the next Olympics.
Okay.
All right. So, Nick, while you're on the phone,
yes, Miguel.
Let me ask you this: at this current rate, and all the things that we know now, all the things that you have explained, do we really have a sporting body 20 years from now?
Yes.
Will we really have athletes with that kind of offer? And as somebody gets to be of some world class renown,
are you saying that Jamaica is not able to use this as a learning moment?
No. If we don't. If we
you
don't,
have to look at that. Can we compete with some of these oil rich and other rich countries if they decide to take our athletes to say, just represent me, put on my colors. Marilyn Ati went to run for Slovenia many years ago before she retired.
But she was 40 odd and she never won a medal for Slovenia.
And she would never earn this big pay. But the reality is up on us. We are producing, and let's face it, for some of these athletes, because they are also taking world champion athletes and Olympic athletes, but some of these athletes will never probably will never make the team for Jamaica, but they get a chance to go make the team for Turkey, run at the Olympics and get rich in the
the four names that we're hearing now are all medalists though. These are champions, aren't they?
What I'm saying, you're hearing about 4 names, but it's much more than that.
No, but Turkey, but I think Turkey has. Is Turkey reaching to all out? Are people reaching out to Turkey? Turkey knows what it wants.
And I'm saying it's not only Turkey. Bahrain has been doing it for years.
Okay.
And Nick, I see Kabu has taken away the question. If we don't pull up our socks,
this is the boy. The boy have no respect for me.
If pull up, can we pay anybody amount of money? Turkey and Bahrain.
No, so I am asking you.
Give any athlete 70 million and approximately 5 million a month.
So I am.
Yes, we can.
So I'm asking. Allow Nick to answer the question. I'll stop having the question.
I tell you, Nick now answer. Nick say only for something and now answer the question.
No, stop having the question.
Nick, it's a yes or no question. I hug it behind that answering. Nick, is our sporting body in trouble?
Deeper conversation because I don't know if we can afford it.
Are we in trouble, Nick?
So I can't take the man business. I'm going to talk as a woman. I'm going to tell you something. Hold on there.
Are we in trouble?
No, we're not in any trouble. I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know because I heard Asafa saying it. My picking in a run to Jamaica under these conditions. If them decide to run, so I don't know.
Can I say something? Let me put up my hand. Call on me, Big A. Let me put up my hand because this is never call Kishima. Call on me, Nick. Please call on me. Because here the thing. This is what I'm saying. What the government of Jamaica has to do is to go sit down with the private sector organization and to say, here is our situation. We don't have much time now. Nikki, the sales manager, should know, so we're going over time. Listen, Big A, you're going to pay for this. Right, so you're going to pay for Nick. Big A. So here's the thing, Big A. Sit down with the private sector organization and get these people sponsored. Start right there, sir. I think that call upon the private sector, KFC first.
Abu, I don't know why you have so much faith in the private sector. And when the reggae boy started out,
I have faith in this. I have faith in the fact that there is now what appears to be something that, if escalated, can become a crisis. So if Babsy and JC, we have to go because there's an OB, Nick. But I say the private sector organization working with the government can. Nick, sorry, we have an outside broadcast. So are you under the OB?
Dwight is coming, so you can't talk further with Dwight. I think he's the one doing the OB.
And I show this to a big A program we got. All right, okay. All right, Mr. Bigay. Look here. We have a lot to talk about, but I know you have your thing.
We certainly do.
Yes,
we
yes.
certainly do.
You see, this thing, I can just imagine what going on in Jamaica. If me and Bigay start quarrel on the radio. All right. Leaving it to me. Oh, I'll take that. See you next week. Thank you so much for listening.
One Uptown TV. Yo, enough there, me I represent. Bang.
Being representing a man for Uptown TV.
Bad we bad cause